get some access. Okay. Start. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Some of the resumes we have for the two positions that we're looking for. Do you want to schedule interviews? Sure. We want to do that. Sure. For both. We should do it so we can. So
I would say maybe next week.
Sure. Okay.
Pick a day.
That works for me. Thursday might be, would it be a bad idea to do it late Thursday afternoon before we have the NRI
Yeah, we could do it then, Gary.
What's that?
We have that NRI.
meeting at
Meeting
6?
at
Do we
6.
Meet here at 4:30 or 5?
Usually we do a half hour per
Right,
person.
so
So
we did 4:30, added a little buffer, we could do that.
Meet
that
here?
time, and then walk through
4:30. So that's the
the 21st.
September 4:30.
yeah, a week from today. That would get the office time to notify the applicants.
Sure.
The other name?
6 o'clock
Over,
at the firehouse.
Firehouse.
Yeah.
so we'll meet here and then go to the firehouse.
Mary is on.
Hear that, Mary's.
Oh. Mary, can you hear us okay? It's really blurry. What happened?
Margaret, you need to unmute. Maybe that someone has their background blurred, but then they're not at the screen right now.
Hi, Mary?
Nope, it's not over.
Gary, I'm here.
Okay.
Okay, you can hear us?
It's Mary. Yes, I can.
Okay, so you see, we have a list of dates for the budget meetings.
Yep.
Are they good for everybody?
I think so, yeah. What time is it?
You can do it,
Evening?
well, earlier the better. Those are all Monday dates.
But, yeah, last time we did it starting at 5:30 or I think it was 5:30 last time.
Good?
Yeah.
Okay, just remember October 2nd, the preliminary budget will be presented to the board. The 16th, 23rd, and 30th will be workshop meetings. November 2nd, tentatively scheduling the public hearing.
What date was that in November, Mary? Second.
November 2nd.
Hey, James, where are you? How you doing? You want to give us your report, please?
Sure. So, August, there's not a whole lot of activity, not much to report. 48 inspections, it's 17 permits issued, 4 permits renewed. There were only 2 building complaints received in August. They were both about the same property. One of them was handled, or appears to have been handled informally regarding the fallen tree. The other one was more general property maintenance violations. That's an ongoing case with some involvement from the State Department of Health at this point. The building is vacant, and that buys a lot more time to fix ongoing issues. Zoning, 6 municipal searches, 1 FOIL request, 1 site visit, 2 verbal complaints were received per section 490.1. I can't really act on those without a written complaint unless there's a threat to life. I looked at both of them briefly. There wasn't enough there to start any investigation without a written complaint, so they're pending written complaint. And that's really the extent of August.
Good, thanks, James, appreciate it.
Thanks, James.
You have Joe,
You want me to read through those? Either one?
you have Joe's report there?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, Joe Spagnuolo submitted the following report. Fall grading started today on Sutton Road, moving forward to Short, Montague, Deep Hollow, and Tower Hill, and we'll continue on from there. His second information, a 2006 John Deere tractor, possible transmission issues. We're getting prices.
I spoke to Joe in
What are
depth about it, and he was gonna also call a
Ajá,
couple
directamente a las muchachas, ya empecé.
dealers to
Kathleen in his office is working to complete the FEMA request for reimbursement for storm damage on Butts Hollow Road. And number 4, he would like to sell dump trucks numbers 1 and 3 and number 16 Sander. All have been decommissioned. All of these vehicles are 1990s.
Yeah, I talked to him today about it, yeah, sure,
So he's going to follow through on those.
yeah, good.
So do we have to approve that number 4 because they're
Yeah, just to make it part of the record, so if somebody wants to authorize that.
I'll make a motion to authorize number 4 for the sale of those items.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Are 3,
He usually puts up on an auction.
I was gonna ask, do they have to be replaced? Or is that
Well,
something
we
like
replaced,
budget?
we
Yeah.
replaced a few of them, yeah,
Okay,
but they're really old.
right, but we have enough, we're not looking at this
No.
issue where it's a shortage.
No.
To the winter.
And then you have Lois's bookkeeping report, is Lois on?
Lois is sick tonight, unfortunately. So you all have your reports from her. They're either on the counter or in your boxes.
Yeah, we have them.
Great.
Anything that we need to act on as part of the budget transfer? Doesn't look like it's. No.
Let me just read the top of it.
But,
You reported on tax revenue at the last meeting.
yeah, Lisa, you want to give your report?
Sure. All right, you have it, the report I sent you?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so, I did finish up the review of the sales for that 2024 roll, on 8/30, and, we did have a good volume again this year, since prices are still higher, it doesn't seem they're all quite as crazy, but there's still some high sales prices. A lot of private sales, which is a little different than what we normally have, more commercial also. So that's kind of the trend in sales for the past year. We also did bring in a part-time data collector to help for Michael, and that's going very well. So I'm very happy about that. Last, I did speak to Uniondale relative to the Board of Assessment review intermunicipal agreement where we will agree to help each other's boards out when we have potential conflict of interest. So Betsy was going to work on drafting that document for Jeff at some point. We still have time for that to have that. And, there's no charge between the two towns. It's just the courtesy of us to help each other out if there is a conflict of interest within a board member or whatever the circumstances that could create.
That's a good idea,
Yeah, it's great.
for sure.
Happy about it.
Yep.
And she was too, Betsy, so that's good.
Good.
So, any questions?
Anybody, any questions for Lisa?
And I did answer your question about the board of assessment.
Yes.
You understood my.
Yeah.
Okay,
I did, thank you.
yeah, absolutely. And then we do have a few pending things that Jeff is gonna be working on once we finish up all the short-term rental stuff. But we still have some time on that too, so. Yeah, we're good, doing good.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Okay.
Danielle, can you give us yours?
On that site, we had a recreation committee meeting. There were 4 commissioners in attendance, along with Mike Murphy. There's open seats still on the rec commission, so if everybody knows anybody that would be interested in that seat, please let us know. Our senior program, we are offering tickets for 2 shows at the Civic Center. One is on October 5th and one is on October 4th. We have 21 people going to the October one and 28 people going to the November one.
Good.
Park updates, the pool is not drained yet because there's some debris in the drainage area that we are going to be working on soon to make that happen. We have another pavilion rental also in the park. There is also a concert to support the Millbrook VFW on September 24th. From 5 to 9, that's a Sunday. Music by the Johnny Walkers. There will be food and beverages available for purchase. There's a Newtown program that is a toddler program. It started September 9th. It is a full program now, and there's a waiting list. Fall registration is full with 82 regular soccer registrants and 14 kindergarten soccer registrants. Basketball just opened yesterday.
Good
And we
music,
already
right?
have people registered. Holiday programs are October 28th on a Saturday, which is our Halloween parade and trunk or treating. And on Friday, December 8th will be our gingerbread house night and meet and greet Santa.
How late do we keep the pavilions rentals open?
Usually they get closed out when we have to turn the water off, which is early November. Late October.
Did Spagnolis get up there to check on the water coming into that?
Joe is going to dig and find the line, see how deep it is, and if it's necessary, replace it. Or highway department, is going to.
That's the line going into that main building, the big building.
Right, from the well to the camp building. And then we have, the only other thing we have to do is if the line is okay or whether we replace it. We just have to heat, we have to put probably in just an electric heater in that
Correct.
room where the water tank is.
Yeah.
That should be easy, because we have the we have plenty of power in that building, so had the electricians check it out, so.
Awesome.
Yep.
Think that'll happen this year with that?
According to what Joe said, yeah,
Yeah.
be able to do it, but, you know, we still have to put it out to bid for the building to, you know, to get it done, to get, you know, the lighting and
No, I meant as far as like the.
the line, yeah.
line, Yeah.
Yeah, but they're gonna try to do that and trench the drain out at the same time.
Before the ground freezes. Okay.
No, very soon, so they could drain the pool.
So Mary, did you want to give your report or can you hear me?
Yes, I don't have too much because we already talked about the budget meetings. And, well, in fact, I need a motion and a second to schedule those budget meetings and to schedule the preliminary budget special meeting for October 2nd.
November 2nd or?
October 2nd.
And do you need anything for the hearing for November?
We won't schedule that until probably the October 2nd meeting when we know how the budget looks.
Okay.
So for now, I'm asking for a motion to schedule October 2 16, 23, and 30.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in
Thank you,
favor?
Jeff.
Okay. Done?
Thank you. Okay. I do want to report, and I'm very excited, that General Code has everything that they need from us for the zoning book that will be, or the zoning code that will be online and available. It's taken me 30 years to get this initiated and completed. So it's all in their hands right now for publication and putting the final pieces together. So any new legislation after this will be updated, but it won't be in the legislation immediately.
Well, it was only fitting, Mary, that it had happened 30 years since you started working here.
I know, it's been crazy. The gentleman that I worked with at General Code, Bruce Cadman, he came to the town hall when I first started and presented the information. So 30 years later, full circle, I'm happy to see it complete, and we should have it available and online probably in October at some point. So that is terrific news.
Yeah, good news.
Yes. So the other thing, and I don't know, I missed the very beginning of the meeting. Did you schedule the interviews for the court clerk candidate and the planning board and ZBA?
You did.
Okay. And what date is that?
A week from today, the 21st,
September 21st? Okay.
4:30.
at 4:30.
4:30 for one and 5. Whether we have the NRI meeting. What time is the NRI meeting?
6 o'clock.
6 at the firehouse, so we have time to get over there.
Okay. All right, so I'll make sure those are scheduled then for next week. That's terrific. Okay. And otherwise, we're working through the website. There are still things to be updated and refined on the website, but that's happening, which is really good news. And hunting licenses are available for sale. Anyone that wishes to get their doe permits must do so by the end of September. And that's what I have for you tonight.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
Hey, Bob, you want to fill us in? Anything going on? No?
Just, we're gonna need a new roof, and, I'll have the two people give us just some ballpark numbers before we put it out to bid. We'll research metal, asphalt. I started looking up the solar, well, not the panels, but the shingles, and it's,
Really expensive.
yeah, they're super expensive. And there's a lot of restrictions on how you can lay them, the pitch of the roof and all of that kind of stuff. But the one roofer that came and did the, what do you call that thing?
Oh, the drone?
The drone, he looked up on the roof. He said he would help us out, get us some roundabout numbers so we could put it out to bid. So hopefully we can get it into the budget time. Currently, we only have one leak. It's minor, and I don't know if James is still here. Climbed up on the roof and patched it up a little bit. And it's dripping a little bit in the heavy rain. So it's not anything that we need to declare an emergency with.
Okay, thank you. No?
Okay, so the last zoning board of appeals meeting was held August 15th, and there was only one item on the agenda, which is Orvis and Denona. Everybody's familiar with Orvis, I'm sure. They have a retail shop there, and so they are looking for a variance for the retail shop. and also a variance for retail shop expansion. They wanted to have a public hearing on the 15th, but they could not because it was not properly advertised in the newspaper. So the public hearing is now scheduled for that for September 19th. So the meeting opened at 7:30 and it adjourned at 7:30.
You got all busy with that one, right?
Yes, I did.
Thanks, Joe. Leslie?
Sure, well, perfect segue. The planning board met on September 5th, and the only thing on their agenda was to discuss the zoning board of appeals request that they, the ZBA, be lead agency on the Orbis application. And the planning board agreed to that, so very short meeting. September 6th, the CAC met, discussed the 2 letters that they were sending to the town board on hospitality and short-term rentals. That's all for the CAC. This morning, and I bumped into Jeff on the streets of Poughkeepsie, it was very funny at, 9 a.m. this morning. I went to the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development because in order to qualify to apply for the community development block grant, we had to attend that meeting. Mike and I met on Monday to go look at the driveway at the park. Our thought was perhaps we could make an argument for funding for accessibility. Unfortunately, they told me today that wouldn't qualify. But anything else that has to do with seniors or handicap accessibility would qualify. So I thought that I had, and we can talk about this more in depth at a later time. I know we have to redo the ramp, and we talked about getting a better handicap accessible door here. The woman I spoke with thought that would absolutely qualify and be, so there's a risk that we didn't get the funding, but if we could, I know we had allocated some money in the budget for that, perhaps we see if we can get the CDBG grant and then, use the money for that, and then we can apply that money maybe for roof or.
The doors at the camp are in that other grant, right?
What was that?
Yes,
Okay.
doors for that. So
Yeah.
that's covered between the last CDBG grant. The
Right.
only thing, Danielle, that they mentioned to me today, one of the things that they're to evaluate applications is timeline and how soon towns are executing on it. So she asked me how we were doing with the rec, and I said, we're moving along. We've had some contractor issues, which, happens to everybody. So I'll circle back with you on that. But September 29th is when we need to have our letter of intent. The application is due October 20th. We do not need to have any kind of formal estimate, just a rough estimate for either, I think you already have it, for the ramp. And so just the doors, if we wanted to do that. And it's a very simple letter of intent that I can write for that part of the application. But we do have to schedule a public hearing in order to submit the application. So we probably want to have the public hearing for this be at our October meeting. So we should, just think about anything else, and it's a federal grant, so it has to, be for low income individuals. Our town does not qualify as a low income designated town, but anything that we do for those that are seniors or handicap are automatically part of that. So, so anything handicap accessible would be in play. So food for thought, and we can talk more about it, see if we want to get that on the docket for the October meeting. Next Thursday is our joint presentation with the Village of Millbrook on our natural resources inventory. Margaret, who's part of that group, as is Richard Phillips, the task force from the town. And we have great participation from our CSC as well. And the CAC, I should also mention Pam Scott and Shannon Ledoux have been working on that with us as well. This is our draft write-up. So Cornell is going to come, is going to present on the process, and then we're going to have some maps for everyone to look at, and it'll be a very informative and exciting evening for those that have been close to this NRI. And then we're having a table also, so we want to get feedback from the town board and planning, and same with the villages board and the villages planning board. And then we will work, take that feedback and work on finalizing the draft and then present it to the public at Community Day on October 7th. We're gonna have a table. Yeah. So that is it
Good.
for me.
Good report, thank you.
Before you go any further, could, going back to the CDBG grant,
Yes.
we would need to authorize, someone would need to make a motion to authorize Leslie to submit the letter of intent. And then we should also have a motion to schedule the public hearing for October.
Okay.
I'll make the motion to have Leslie do the letter of intent. Second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I mean, if we all agree that we want to try for the ramp in the front door, then we don't have
Yeah,
to.
these two doors.
Yeah,
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Right?
yeah. Oh, I think so, definitely. And
Yeah.
the woman I spoke with there said that would absolutely, would absolutely qualify. It's exactly in line with what, their
And we can
finances were.
repurpose that money that we put aside for the rent.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, we've been patching these two doors, this one and the one upstairs
Yeah.
for a while.
Yeah,
They work, but they're,
We may be able to put all three doors into that grant for accessibility to exit the buildings in the event of an emergency. So that
Right.
might be something you want to
Yeah.
consider.
you're talking about the downstairs door, exit door. We can assist.
The courtroom door and possibly the handicap exit. The fire emergency exit upstairs.
Right.
So I just need someone to make a motion to schedule the public hearing for the October meeting, please.
Schedule a public hearing for
Second.
next, for October.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Mike.
I'm sorry, who made those motions?
I made the motion, I seconded it.
Who I seconded it?
Mike.
Mike, okay,
Mike.
thank you.
Good.
My report, this afternoon I met with two representatives of the planning board, Susan Meany and Emily. They have been working on the language that is currently in the wetlands code, trying to simplify some of the sentences and so on. They've completed that process, we reviewed it. They're going to pass it on to the board and their attorney to look at it. It kind of parallels what Mary was talking about with putting the codes properly together and so on. So we're moving forward on that. That was part of that. We all took a
Yeah.
piece of all those codes.
Mhm.
That was one of the
Mike's
pieces
been
I
doing
had
his
taken.
homework. I have to catch up. I've been too focused on other things.
Me too.
Leslie talked about the entranceway to the rec area as a possibility for this grant, although it may not qualify or doesn't qualify. We do have to take a serious look at that entranceway, particularly the fan at the end of ours that connects to the county road. Due to all of this rain and flooding that has occurred up there, the pavement, the blacktop is starting to really deteriorate. Further in, the runoff from all of the rain above the reservoir has started to deteriorate the middle of the road entranceway, and then up around the turn, it's now down to bare rock. So we're gonna have to take a look at that. And I spoke to Joe. Part of the problem too is the drainage ditches on either side of that entrance need to be addressed. So we're gonna take a look at that. And we'll keep looking for money to try and rectify that. Even if we do pieces at a time, eventually we get the whole thing done. But in looking at the deterioration, it looks like there are currently 3 layers without grinding it out. There was an initial layer, then a top layer, then another top layer, and that's what's falling apart.
Yeah.
So we're looking at that.
It's time.
I met with the Fishkill Recreation Department yesterday, and we've had some people look at Stanford Rec to speak with them and to look at how they regulate the hours of access to their recreation facilities. Some of them are sunrise to 9 o'clock, some are gated, some are not. So once I collect all that information, I'll bring that information to us. If we're gonna start making improvements up there, like a 12-month-a-year building, perhaps some upgrades in services and programs up there, we've got to figure out how to get proper access. but also maintain the security and well-being of the property. Now, the gentleman at Fishkill said that since COVID, they've seen a tremendous drop-off of people hanging parks after hours, as well as vandalism on the properties. He attributed this to people probably just more concerned about groupings, but they're putting in pickleball courts also. They're working out how to access those. They're thinking of key fobs, signing up ahead of time, paying a rate, key fob, or a card swipe that gets them into that area. So I'll bring all of that back to you as soon as I have it completed. We are still in touch with Granicus, which parallels the short-term rental local law. As soon as we determine how we're moving on the short-term rental and do approval, I'll put forward a request to move forward on the contract with Granicus. Work with them, and Mary has emails with them and the proposed contract already. I make sure that we get in the line of them as quickly as possible so that then we can submit it to Dutchess County and get reimbursed for the fee that we will be contracting with Granicus. Just some information, if you could get to Danielle and to me when the contract for the village gym is next due, that will help us in some of the decisions we're making for program.
I believe we have a contract, I want to say either October or January. We should be reaching out to the village. They should be providing us with proposals. I think, if I recall, Mayor Colopy had a set increase amount for several years. I think it was like a 10% increase, and we had a contract for 3 years. But Chrissy can pull those files, and we can look closer at those and determine when we have to renew. So I'll have Chrissy pull those files.
Thank you.
Mary, you said it's a 3-year
You're
term,
welcome.
or is it annual?
I think it's annual.
For some reason, I have in my head that it was a 3-year contract with a 10% increase each year, but I have to pull and look at them.
Well, I was emailing with Danielle just to remind her that Dutchess Day was
Correct.
offered to donate, the basketball court, so.
So that's why we want to kind of
Yeah.
feel all of this out and see when that contract is due so that we can take some action if we need to.
Yeah, and I'll be talking tomorrow, if Lois is feeling up to it, on the budget with Chrissy and Lois. So I'll make sure we have them out and we can look at them. And then as we have our budget discussions, we can discuss the Dutchess Day location and their offer as well.
And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mike, for the report. Before I forget, if anybody would like a home test COVID kit, we have it here. Help yourself. But feel that they want. Yep. I did.
I know, how are you?
Good. You want to tell us what's going on?
Sure.
County?
So Deirdre House, Dutchess County Legislator. I'm just here to update you guys on a few things, at our meeting last Thursday, at our committee meeting. There's been a ton of constituent concern, complaint, regarding Vassar Brother Hospital Emergency Department and their waiting times, services through the emergency department. So we brought in the, medical director of the emergency department and the new director, CEO of Vassar Brothers Hospital, and they came and they spoke to us about waiting times and specifically nursing shortages, staffing, and what they're doing at Vassar. So they have run a new pilot program, and they're trying to kind of flip-flop the way they do it normally. You go in, you get triage, and then you wait and you see the professional doctor for the specific issue you're having. They're running a pilot right now, and it looks like it's promising. And so when you arrive at the hospital, the emergency department, you are to be seen by what they believe the doctor, the emergency room doctor is going to see you first,
and then move you through the triage process. And that's cut down so far in the last 3 weeks, about 2 hours of waiting. So, they're hoping that it's positive. We, the leadership team of the legislature, which I'm a part of, we have a follow-up meeting with we're going to go, we're going to tour the emergency department and look at pilot project how it's working for the constituents of Dutchess County.
Good.
Because that is the main hospital, and there's been so much complaint that we decided to get involved. So that's one of the things. New York State is the only state that does not allow for youth hunting. If you remember 2 years ago, I came and I reported that the New York State was running a pilot program. It was up to counties to adopt the resolution for the pilot program. We did. And rather than make it turn into law, they decided to extend it, the pilot program, for 2 more years. So we signed on to it, passed a resolution on Monday night, and so the youth hunting will continue for 2 years when we hope it will become positive and it will pass into law. I can tell you that there were 0 instances of any issues in the last 2 years of the pilot program. They just didn't have enough data based on hunting licenses given to turn it into a permanent law. But that's the hope, because obviously in this area, youth hunting has been great, and without any problems. It seems that it seems to be a natural thing where people learn gun safety from their elders. So we're good about that. We passed Monday night at our legislative meeting the solid waste plan for Dutchess County. It's a 10-year plan. It was up for renewal. We renewed it. We are still doing waste to energy. There were many people that came out and suggested other options, but we felt that was the best option for the county. However, we did bring in some local experts, and we are going to look at composting on a municipal local level and how we can assist towns, villages in better facilitating composting. We all know that composting is much better in the sense that we're not burning things that are compostable, so we would like to maybe offer a grant program or something like that in our next budget. So something we'll be talking to municipalities about.
Deirdre, composting is a very hot topic
Yes.
with our CSC, and we have a resident who's a part of the CSC, Colleen Howland, who's very focused on starting that and looking at what other towns are doing. So whatever you're doing there, if you need any, she's done a ton of research, and with what I think Salisbury's been doing, there's a ton of towns, actually neighboring towns in Connecticut, who've got really robust composting programs, and she was hoping to do something maybe with the rec or transfer station, or anyway.
So we have 3 pilot projects going on now in the county for composting. Beacon, City Beacon, Village of Red Hook, Town of, they're all doing it. So the county did it as a pilot program 3 years ago in the City of Beacon. It was not successful. Now they're doing it again, a pilot program with City Beacon and the other 2 I mentioned. And it's volunteering, and it's very successful. It's been going on for a few months, and there's been a great participation. And the biggest thing is 0 contamination.
Yeah.
Which if anyone knows anything about composting, contamination is what really drives the problem. So with this volunteer program, it's been super successful. So we're waiting for that pilot to end. And then we hope to roll out some processes for local municipalities to compost. But I will certainly connect with Colleen, because I think that's great that we could, work together on that. And then lastly, I'm sure you guys know about the Greenbrier. This New York State Department of Health closed Greenbrier back in August. I have been working with the village of Millbrook Mayor and with the county government in order for some of the residents who have left there to get back in and collect their belongings. There's been a problem with that, so we have met a time with the owner. I think the owner set up 2 times next week. The residents and some of their family can get back into Greenbrier and get their personal belongings, and most importantly, their medical records that are all there. So
when you're working with Mayor Colletti, just out of curiosity, I mean, that's not even in.
it's not, but he was reached out to by a constituent who lives in the village.
I see.
That's why he got involved.
Oh, I see. Because I was gonna ask you if you utilize in our rescue squad, and whatnot, to.
No, Deputy Commissioner of County has reached out to the owner, and he's actually working as the point person currently, Mr. Bonex. He's working as the point person, and he is the one who has set up the time with the owners, and someone from the County Department of Health is going to be there to assist people in getting their belongings.
Because it's kind of on them, isn't it? Like on Greenbrier?
It's on Greenbrier, yes, but people should be able to have their medical records.
Of course.
So, that's why the county got involved. So, And I know Mayor Colby was involved because a constituent reached out to him,
Yeah.
trying to get some things.
It's nice.
Are there plans to bring those people back or?
No,
I don't believe that they're, under the current condition of the building, there's any plans to bring people in.
I thought the letter that I saw from the health department said that they had 60 days to correct the deficiencies down there.
They did, but there's nothing happening.
Oh, really?
Right, yeah. So as of right now, there's no plan. It's my understanding. So that's where they're at.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Why did they close it? Was it the decay of the building?
New York State Department of Health closed it.
Number one.
I
Don't know.
I would assume it was multiple factors.
Okay. All right, so, anybody have anything before we get on to public hearing? Okay. So, before, we have two public hearings tonight. One on short-term rentals and the other on the hospitality overlay. And before we do that, I just want to kind of lay down some ground rules. I know there's a lot of people here. I don't want to say that you've only got 3 minutes to talk and move on to the next person. But I want everybody that wishes to speak to be cognizant of everybody else in here that may want to speak. So if it gets too long, I may have to cut you off a little bit because there's a lot of people. I'm sure everybody wants a chance to speak. So
we have a lot of people.
yeah, so just be aware of that if you don't mind. And the other thing, it's not a debate between you people and the town board. We're here to listen to whatever you have, whatever your comments are, your concerns, suggestions. So again, keep that in mind too. And with that, I'll request a motion to open the public hearing on the hospitality overlay.
I'll make that motion.
Second, all in favor?
Gary, should we invite whoever's, people can cut, there's places to stand in the back here if you want to come in. There's a chair up here in the front, people want to come in.
There's a nice comfortable chair up there, somebody.
It's too intimidating. It's a hot seat. It's a hot seat.
Jerry, I have one other request.
Yeah,
Could people identify themselves before they speak
absolutely.
or before they give their opinions?
Yes.
There was also
Thank
a
you.
board with a sign-in sheet that was going around. It's still at the entrance table. If you have not signed it, the only reason we're asking you to sign in, so Mary and the other clerk can identify the comments with a name and an address. So besides speaking and saying, Mary Smith, South Road, please identify yourself when you speak too. And you're welcome to come up to the mic, but we can move the microphone a little bit closer to you if you wish to stay where you are and speak.
So with
The
that,
mic is very important.
yes. So whoever would like to speak, please.
That's a good
use of this chair.
Put you right over here. That's it.
If you're here to talk to us about the overlay district, the meeting is open.
Oh, okay. Well, just Tompkins, have a seat.
I state my name. My name is Robert E. Tompkins Sr. And I've kind of heard through the grapevine that the old Daytop property is being considered for what I heard was rezoning into commercial. I'm not sure where that zoning goes or what it does. However, I sent a registered letter to Mrs. Briggs and I'll hand one to you guys.
We have copies.
Oh, is that the one?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
It states my personal feelings and when we look at it from traffic, safety, noises, it starts to look more like an annoyance. And I often wonder, it seems like when you have businesses like that, people slamming dumpsters, putting garbage out. And on our street, we have children. They come up and they play in my driveway on the circle and down and out. And I often think if you put a restaurant, hotel, inn, however you want to put it, on those properties, you'll have cars going in and out. I would suspect they would have weddings, they would have gatherings, parties, birthdays, whatever, plus dinners. And in order to have a business, you'd probably need a couple hundred place settings for if you're going to have any kind of a wedding at all. Now we have cars going up and down our road, entering and exiting far as I can see. For some reason, it seems like this Ramble Hill, what they call a road, in my mind doesn't even come close to somebody's driveway in the worst case. So if you turn that into a super highway, I can't believe the number of cars that want to go through it today. So I have the concerns that are outlined in this letter. Please take them under consideration. And we'll take it from there for the next hearing or whatever goes on from here. But I'm not sure, is this a rezoning of that property? Or does it fall into the terms of,
It's a hospitality overlay district.
what does that exactly mean?
So exactly what that means, within the residential zone that Daytop, we'll call it Daytop.
Yeah,
Used to be the Millbrook Inn, used to be Ramble Hill. So lately it's Daytop. And that property, that property exists on, along with the Cottonwood and a section across from Bennett, between the light and the monument. We are allowing, we're hoping to allow the comprehensive hospitality review requested to allow those areas for hospitality, just hospitality, not, anything beyond hospitality. It's an overlay district, so what it will allow that, anything that hospitality offers, whether, say restaurant and whatnot.
Excuse me, Joe, they're just having.
We can't hear
hearing.
We can't hear anything.
Oh,
Hear
okay.
things like for working or someone can grab.
Yeah, so.
This is important.
I'm well aware of that, man.
Yeah.
So,
so
should we start over? I'm trying to explain what hospitality district is. And so that will allow that just areas that we said, it would allow for hospitality within the existing zone of property. So
where would I see a layout of what you're calling hospitality? Is that a rezoning or not at all?
it's not necessarily a rezone. I mean, is it? Like, are we calling it? It's not a rezone.
It's a kind of zoning. It's allowing for
It's
an
a
overlay.
particular use
Yeah, it
in
allows
the
for a
property.
particular use there. It
And
does
it's-
not mean, sorry, Joe.
It's just gonna be hospitality.
It does not mean that, it just means that that is something that can be allowed there. That applicant still has to go through all of the various approval processes that one would have to go through before the planning board.
Right, so for example, say somebody would buy the Daytop property after this overlay district was allowed. Say somebody buys that, and then they want to propose an inn or a hotel or whatever. That has to go through the planning board process. And then anything that of concern, you would go to that public, and they would take that under advisement then. Do you see what I mean?
I hear what you're
Okay.
saying, but what I've heard through my neighbors, no one's ever contacted me, but what I've heard is that some gentleman is buying a place and he wants to put 40 rooms in there, wants to have a hotel and inn blah, 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 which has got serious concerns,
Right.
which takes the neighborhood based on this letter. Have any of you read this letter?
Yes.
You've all read it.
Right now. Yeah.
This states pretty much most of the concerns until we get down to the nitty gritty. And, but once this is okay for hospitality, it seems like this is a shoe-in for whoever this person is that wants to buy Daytop, the old Daytop, and convert it to something
Right.
new.
It's not a
It's
shoe.
not a shoe.
Not at
I mean,
all.
he has to go through the planning process.
But if you don't have the hospitality term attached to that property, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Well, the thing is that that property too has been, it has been an inn, it has been a school, it has been a rehab. So,
restaurant.
Yeah.
yeah, so, you know, while those special use permits have since expired, this would be a question for Jeff, but I believe that, you know, there's such a history of having commercial entities there that someone can apply for a special use permit.
Well, any way we slice it or cut it or talk about it, it looks like something's trying to go forward to me.
Mhm.
With that said, please try to understand that you're taking away the tranquility of the open farm type feeling you get to hear noises, music, food smells, because everything seems to go to the top of the hill or under located, along with my neighbors in close proximity. When I say close proximity, 400 or 500 feet, maybe more, I'm not sure. And this letter pretty much states my opinion if that is going to go forward.
Mhm.
With that said, I don't know what else to say to you folks. Only impose on me what you would want imposed on any one of yourselves. If you live there, you, and you, would you want to hear music, cooking, people, probably driving down our road, you're probably going to have people that are over the legal limits of alcohol, probably be impaired. The other day, I say the other day, about a week ago or so, my wife went out one day. We were down the road, and down at the end, there's a little bridge.
Mhm.
And for some reason, going down on the right-hand side, mothers and fathers, and kids seem to want to play on that little bridge. So if me and my wife are coming down, I'm always aware of that. A car comes around the same turn, you can't see, and he's driving seriously on my side of the road. So I broke right down with the car. When I came around, here's a kid's bike standing there, laying on the road, a child, and either a mother or grandmother had the other child up on the wall looking at whatever's down in the water. So consequently, if you wasn't aware of that, you was a wedding goer at maybe Daytop when it's finished, going out of there at any reasonable speed, somebody would have been more than seriously injured.
Mhm.
So that's the thought process. Kids come up, they play in my driveway, they're in the circle there, they're going in and out. They're having a good time. They ride little bicycles, they ride everything you can think of, having a good time. I understand, I think it's great. So if you do something like this, in this hospitality issue that comes up here, I would see probably on any party day, you might say, or wedding or whatever, possibly 100, 150 cars coming up our road, going out of our road, down the other way, the way it stands today. So with that said, it kind of takes away that safety issue. Here's another real interesting issue. For certain reasons, in July, I had my property reassessed for estate planning purposes. And I had heard a little bit of rumbling about this. So the property was reassessed for value. And at that point, I asked the individual, which is a certified for blah, blah, blah. And I said, totally, if you take a neighborhood like this and bring a commercial enterprise in, it normally would have about a 20% or higher impact on the value of the properties. And that's not a positive direction, that's a negative direction. So that was not even talking with anybody, just this one person that does these evaluations. So I think that's also a concern, maybe not as much for me, but maybe for some of my neighbors. You buy something, you put your money into it, you put your life savings into it, and all of a sudden you find out, because we're satisfying some person's need or whatever. You just devalued the neighborhood by 20 or 30%. So that's a concern. And again, in this letter here, I could get into detail of any one of these items you would like in the further meetings to come. Well, please, take in consideration what we're really doing here from all
Appreciate
aspects.
your
Okay.
concerns, sure.
Thank you for your time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks for
Appreciate
stopping.
that. Absolutely. Anyone else? Want to come up?
So we can hear you.
Name and, where you live?
I'm Becky Knapp Thorpe. I live at 45 College Lane. Anybody that's been here around for a while, I'm the oldest of the Knapp kids.
Nice.
We've been there for almost 70 years. And that has always been a business place, at least 70 years. But how long before we got there, I don't know. My concerns are not so much what Mr. Tompkins was speaking about, but July 29th, we had a tree come down across the end of the road. It took a while to get that tree out of the way, and people took off and went out the other end of the road. Now, they may be complaining about traffic coming through now, but wait till you close that and they can't get out because there's a tree across the road. I don't think they're gonna be happy with that. So I would suggest that the first thing that needs to be done when that property is sold is that they fix the Ramble Hill end, and we don't have trucks and deliveries and stuff coming through College Lane. It's a long ways from South Road up there anyway. Those are secondary roads. They should come in from 82. And that would take care of that problem. And I'm not happy about the idea of closing that access either, when you think about Maui and Lahaina, and if some tragedy happens and you can't get out. So I think it's just as well that we keep both ends open if possible. I know some other people have more environmental concerns, but those are the things I thought of first.
Thank you,
Points
Mr.
are well
Manager.
taken. Thank you. Anyone else?
Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Please do.
How you
doing? Good.
Robert Tompkins is my father.
Sure.
The concern of, that road, I don't know, that's a town road, correct?
College Lane is correct.
Is there any studies that have to be done on that road for the structure of the bridge, for the width of
Oh, I'm
the
sure.
Oh,
road,
absolutely.
Yeah.
or traffic?
If they use that.
Right, for traffic, and, that's just my concerns, as well as his, but of what traffic studies are gonna be done on College Lane itself to make sure that it's adequate even to do. You all know where the cul-de-sac is, and it narrows down and goes through. I think we're all safe to say that's a driveway at this point,
Mhm.
kind of a driveway.
That's a narrow bridge, that's for sure.
Right, and it's been there for, coming around here when I was like 5, when I was there. So, great idea, but
No, your point's well taken, and like, I don't even know if this is even, if the application's even been made at this point, but all of these concerns are gonna be, has to be addressed,
Yeah, if,
have to be.
if somebody buys that property, whatever they're gonna do with it, it would have to relate, if the law was passed for the overlay, they would have to meet, I mean, if they're gonna put 40 rooms in, like Mr. Tompkins says, they would, first of all, that's not, that's a
20.
big stretch.
Yeah.
20 is
20
the
maybe.
average that we would like to see. And even if they put 20 in, they would have to prove water, sewer, traffic studies, road improvements, and, just me speaking personally, I'm not going to speak for our planning board, but they don't want, I'm sure they won't want traffic through College Lane. And, I know everybody on the planning board, and I just, this is not supposed to be a back and forth thing, but,
I'm trying to learn about it too, because
Right.
my parents, as an example,
And
live
if
right
you've
next
ever
to
been
it,
to,
and nobody's
Yeah.
ever said a word to them until
right,
I heard from somebody that
oh, guess what? This is going on. So,
Yeah.
you know, I
So
don't
just
need to be
to,
educated.
just to, you know, they could give you more history than me, but, we need a little hospitality here in the town. We need something. And that's why the study went on for how long? A year and a half?
Yeah.
We had a study for a year and a half on hospitality, and the zones that were studied are those 3 zones that are being proposed here. So Washington Hollow, Ramble Hill, the old Millbrook Manor, I call it, Millbrook Manor.
When you say
And-
hospitality, who's the hospitality for? People from New York City coming here? Or
Well,
for
could be,
for the public?
it might be one of your kids gonna get married and you're gonna have 50 people come to Millbrook.
I
you know,
just
they-
mean the
some-
village itself along with this. Because half the stuff in the village, you know, and I think we all probably agree, are you gonna go in and buy a $200 pair of pants, you know? I don't think too many people in the town are gonna do that.
Right.
You know, I'm not trying to nitpick at things, but
No,
you know-
it wouldn't be specifically to promote the village of Millbrook. It would be more or less, we have, and we are aware, which is why Airbnbs are gonna be our next.
that's the thing going up now. Yeah,
Right,
absolutely.
because there's a need for hospitality. There's not a need for hospitality so people can go in and shop. There's a need for hospitality because people come here and visit their families. They come here when people are getting married and they need a place to stay other than Poughkeepsie. They come here when Orvis has, you know,
If somebody gets,
and they come, and so Orvis is actually requesting, where can we stay? So they ship them out to Airbnbs.
so people in Poughkeepsie for weddings are coming out here to stay?
No,
No,
people come here for
come
weddings.
here and they go out to Poughkeepsie to stay.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Another question I have, what exactly is the difference between what it's zoned at now and the hospitality?
This is a hospitality overlay, so just to respond
What's
to
the
our other
difference?
questions. So there was a project that came to the town a couple of years ago, and there was discussion among residents about the scale of it, what was being proposed, and do people really want hospitality? And so there were 6 people. Margaret Schneibel was one. Joe was the chair of it. Was it 6
No.
people on the report?
It was 7.
7
Yeah,
people
and
that
Tim
were
Maker.
put together, all different perspectives on hospitality. And there were open houses at the firehouse. There were focus groups with people, business people, and regular residents. And then there was an all-town survey that went out. And the idea was to find out from the residents, do you want to have a hotel here or in here? And if you do, what size and where? And so the town board didn't arbitrarily decide these areas.
Right.
Those were decided by the community with a map, and it was identified, you know, do you like this area, this area, this area? I think because there had been an inn there, and because the Cottonwood had been a hotel, they seemed like
I understand
logical
that.
places. So that's sort of where that came from, and there is community support report for hospitality. The question becomes what size and where. And so the reason that the overlay is helpful and not just regular commercial.
What is an overlay? Does
It's-
it go over the old property and it
Overlay
shows a
means- It
new?
means zoning for a particular purpose. So this
Right.
is a hospitality overlay. So we're saying a hotel could possibly go here, but it has to meet all of these criteria.
Right.
Which is helpful because it's better than just saying, letting an application come and then responding to it. It's saying this is what the community wants in terms of scale, scope,
For zoning.
location. Exactly, for the zone, but it still has to go through all the application processes as planning, but it
I would
just,
hope.
it almost gives residents and the planning board really more tools to evaluate an application, and tools that reflect what the comprehensive plan. So the hospitality report that this committee put out was adopted as part of what's called the town's comprehensive plan, and we can only legislate based on what's in the plan.
And if you put the hospitality in there, then you can plan for that.
Well, and then we adopted that in, and the plan's gonna be opened up again in 25 to look at other issues. Because the plan didn't in 2015 particularly address hospitality, and it was a question, the town board, prior to my time, put together this group and, they worked for a year and a half, I think,
Almost 2 years,
on this particular,
Sorry about it.
topic. So anyway, I know we're having I know
Yeah.
we're
No,
watching
I'm
our
just
time,
trying to
but I
understand,
don't
but
need to-
still, at that point, nobody's explained to me what the zoning is currently. What is the difference in zoning from what it
It's
is
zoning
to it?
right now, I believe it's
To the
just
hospitality.
residential.
Right, what's the difference between those two? That's what I'm trying to understand.
So,
Okay, so put this, so what was existing there already, which was in at one time, or, daytop or whatever. So it just stands to reason that it can return to that, like, for example.
That's what hospitality allows it to do?
Hospitality allows for hospitality,
With limitations
With
of where the
limitation
hospitality
restrict-
spells out.
right,
right,
A special use permit right now could be anything.
right.
So this guides the hospitality overlay to specifics. It can't be more than what it says, what is written.
Also, the review process probably will not only be our planning board and our zoning board, but because that property or that overlay district is also going to be butted right up against 44 and 55, or 44 and 82, the county and the state would probably get involved in some review because those would be entranceways or exit ways too, coming out into that highway from that property.
As soon as it
So
goes out
they
to a
would be
state road.
involved in any review within that border that is being designated as hospitality. If anyone wants to do hospitality in there, that's all that this is saying, is we're establishing this border. Hospitality can go in there. An applicant that you're concerned about, that is another issue that does then go before the planning board, and the same arguments that have been voiced here tonight would be very big arguments again, when presented to the planning board.
I'm just trying to understand, I still don't, I'm sorry, maybe I'm a little slow.
So, we gotta
Move on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Let me just say this one more thing, no problem. The difference between what it is currently and what hospitality is there something written that you can that I can look at that says, okay, you can have 3 kitchens here and then here is 5
No,
kitchens?
the hospitality is on our website.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
can look at the whole thing.
yes.
The
there's a
whole law, you can
report
read.
and there's a recommendation, and you can look at what's being proposed. And it's all there, and if you have questions, just, email us.
So that would be for the overlay, and then what's proposed for there specifically? Nothing yet.
Just to give you one
Brings
more,
his proposal or their proposal forward,
Then there'll be,
that becomes public.
absolutely.
just to clarify, so Daytop was there,
Mhm.
and Daytop, I'm sure you were around when Daytop came to town, okay? That was a 5-year hullabaloo. I mean,
And before the
we
Ramblin'
had
or
hundreds
whatever,
of
I
people at
remember a
those
little bit of
meetings,
that.
right? And so when Daytop closed up and the property, that nobody
Vacant.
bought it or continued its use that was allowed at the time, it reverted back to residential.
Okay,
So if you wanted to buy it tomorrow, and I don't know what the.
I could already build a
zoning is,
house for myself or refurbish that
3 or
for me,
4 houses, I don't know how much acreage. it is.
Right.
I forgot how many acres.
but it would remain residential.
Correct.
So the hospitality is more of a, want to change it to a commercial from residential.
Only hospitality.
Not
Not a.
Okay,
not a-
that's good.
Not a big truck.
Yeah, so Dollar General.
My $3.
Store, no gas station, none of that.
Oh, I hope not again.
Thanks for being.
Thank you.
Someone else? Oops.
That's all right.
My name is Cole.
Okay.
I lived here for 4 years, and I don't want big trucks to come in because I ride my bike and walk my dog and fish
We
by
understand.
the bridge.
Yes.
So Cole is one of those that fishes by the bridge that was just talked about. And our other concern is noise pollution, sound pollution, and also the wildlife up there. But then also from a more technical standpoint, the cesspool of what could potentially happen because we have a well. And just hearing about the septic or the cesspool up there, just a concern definitely about that. But
Sure.
our 8-year-old son wanted to speak tonight because he is really concerned about his dog Everest and just the traffic, because the traffic already can be a little sketchy at times, especially down by that bridge because it's incredibly narrow.
Yeah.
Even on a regular Tuesday, it can be very dangerous down there.
Right.
So, and there's lots of kids that play up at the house.
And your name and where do you live?
We live 82 College Lane
82.
and
Did you sign the?
we did, yes, yes.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you, young man. Very brave.
Very good, Cole.
Jim Bauer, 25 Creeper Trail, which is off Sutton. Thank you for the resurfacing on the road. It was nice to. My question is hospitality, and we're looking at the two properties. Is there a reason why we're not talking about Migdale, which adjoins my property? Is that a future date or?
I don't know if it'll be a future date, to tell you the truth. It depends what the plans are now for it. And
Plans,
as of right now, I'm not sure if there are any plans for it anymore. This is strictly for the hospitality overlay.
Right,
district.
which I
There's no
understand.
hearing for that.
All right,
It
just,
has nothing to do with me.
okay, it just as it's a concern with
Sure.
proximity.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the part of the study that was done, those were the 3 areas where we're suggesting overlays, where people wanted hospitality. There was not support for hospitality in the R10,
Mm.
which is where
Maybe.
that is.
Yeah.
And people felt places that had a history or of having been a hospitality venue, and then the area across from Bennett, there's nothing there right now. Those are empty lots that are there. Primarily, there's going to be one that has a house on the bus in that section. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, guys, because I know this takes a lot of time.
Yeah. Thank you. for your
Thank you.
comment.
Thanks for coming.
I'm Ira Haskell from 81 College Lane.
Yes, sir.
We're neighbors here. First of all, I wanted you to know, I agree with everything people have said. And you have a letter that I sent.
Yeah.
Pretty sure. Okay. So I'm trying to think of, what is the purpose, general purpose, the mission of having the hospitality overlay? So it seems to me that it's to help the town prosper, right? So I'm not necessarily against prosperity. I'm not against more taxes for the town because maybe it'll mean less taxes for us or ours don't go up. And by the way, I come from a family of developers, so I'm not anti-developer. I've been on planning boards in California, in the city of Los Angeles and other cities. So I know how this works, plus the development my family did. But there's this other gentleman asked what the existing zoning is for that property. And every place I look, I get a different answer. You're telling me
It's residential.
that it's reverted to residential.
Yes.
Okay. Now that property is now in the 21st century, not in 1990. It's surrounded by residential homes. So why is this? So again, I'm not against necessarily an overlay district or looking at ways to develop other things in the city or the town. But this particular property is with residential homes, and you want to put, I know you're calling it hospitality, but a commercial business in there. So, and this young lady mentioned that, well, it's been like that. There's been an inn, there was daytop, there was whatever. Well, if it's back to residential, why change it? That's the correct way for that particular property to be. Because it would, aside from all the issues of College Lane and the bridge collapsing when the 18-wheelers go over, and the kids playing and the noise and the lights, it's a residential area. And you want to keep Millbrook, the town of Millbrook, and the town of Washington, as a a community, right? And if you start putting businesses in these places, in the middle of residences, that's not, I think it's time to correct the mistake that was made, okay, years ago, and just keep it as a residential community. I don't know if anybody mentioned, but I guess there's also a cost-benefit relationship here. What is the cost going to be to the town of Washington with increasing the roads, police there, maybe there's a traffic light on 82 and right? Maybe on South Road, trucks will come down South Road off of 44 all the time. How many trucks? Every day, there'll be 10, 15 trucks. We don't know. Plus, once it's built, maybe they decide they want to put pickleball courts in, right? So now they want more space in their land for parking. Well, it sounds like a reasonable thing, but now that's bringing in more cars, more trucks. The construction alone of renovating that building, which has been vacant for what, like 10 years? And it's going to be a year, 2 years of back and forth cement trucks, right? Supply trucks, all the workers. Where are they going to put their cars? What roads are they going to drive? So I really think I'm not here to knock the idea of a hospitality district. We're trying to make the town prosper more. But I'm saying this particular place, the Daytop, is a residential area. You're going to put a business in that residential area. And the business is going to want to grow. They're going to want to add rooms and they'll come back. And yes, the planning could say, no, we don't want any more rooms. But we know that eventually on a 32-acre lot, there will be more construction and more people. And a wedding, 200 cars, right? How many people will come to a wedding there? They'll want to do it outside. What about the noise? The band. Well, you could make a rule and say it's got to be indoors. Well, that's going to cut into the revenue for the hotel or the inn or whatever you want to call it. So once again, I think it's the location. This particular location is in a residential area. We need to keep it that way. So thank you for listening.
Thanks, Mr. Houseman.
Appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, how do you do? My name is Eric Lekstrom. I live on College Lane. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank all the folks who spoke before me because I know much more now than I did this afternoon when I decided to come down here. I'd like to thank Mr. Tompkins, the elder, and Mr. Haskell because they will allow me to be very brief. They made some great points that I don't have to repeat. I'd like to thank Mr. Tompkins the younger because whether he knows it or not, his questions were great and prompted you to give some answers that I think a lot of people in this room needed. And I'd like to follow it up with one more question. This hospitality overlay, this is already a done deal. Are we considering whether Daytop is going to be developed into something or just by whom? So when you talk about this hospitality overlay, and there was a survey done, and I don't want to come off sounding kind of snarky and smart, but it sounded like no one on College Lane was involved in this survey. Like everyone pointed a finger to the other side of town and said, "Oh yeah, I think she could develop over there."
Well, if you own property on College Lane, you've got a survey.
Well, I don't know. Maybe I got lost in some junk mail or something. I don't remember saying it, but it sounds like most of the local people that are going to be affected are a little down on the idea. Anyway, back to the question was, when you talk about this overlay, so this is sort of a done deal and it's committed, or they're still developing the idea of whether there is going to be an overlay?
Right. It's not a done deal, which is why we're having this public hearing tonight.
Got it. Very good. Thank you.
It's not a done deal.
That's what I was trying to understand.
Obviously, the citizens, we have to take their concerns into consideration.
Very good. So this is an if, not a to whom.
Correct.
Very good. Thank you very much. That makes it very clear for me, and hopefully maybe it helps someone else. Okay, well, other than that, I think all I can do is really comment on what other folks had said. Mr. Tompkins, the elder, and Mr. Haskell, I think, have already voiced my concerns about just quality of life concerns. The young gentleman from down the road definitely illustrated the safety concerns, I think, pretty succinctly. And the concerns I had coming in, I think I spoke to Mr. Rockford on the way in, were just infrastructure. We do seem like we're sort of a little island. We were talking about how Central Hudson seems to, maybe their infrastructure is a little weak. Optimum's is definitely not what it could be. I don't know how much these companies invest in this area. How much more, and also my well. Yes. Do I expect anything to happen to my water pressure after they start running the dishwashers? So my thing was basically infrastructure concerns, and as well as all the other ones that have been very well stated. I can't think of anything else, so thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a good night.
Hello.
Hey.
John Oberzak. I live at 75 College Lane.
Okay.
Just, again, everyone had great conversations. I have little kids. They run bike on the road too, so all those same things. But for this hospitality overlay, is it possible that the others could stay in, but this Daytop property would come out of the overlay? Is that even, so you're looking at 3 different properties for the overlay. Is that possible that Daytop could come out of that equation and then the other ones would stay in? Or is it those 3 and that's it?
No, it's not a done deal.
No, I know it's not a done deal, but is that a possibility? Because obviously there's a lot around this Daytop property that is getting grief about for obvious reasons. And just quickly too, is if you lived next to Daytop, would you want this in your backyard? And 2, right, the point of the town and the board members is to do the best for the town and to help everyone. This obviously would not help any of us that live on College Lane. It would hurt us financially, right, or lower our property values, safety of our neighborhoods. If you have people driving up and down, going to work, sketchy people, we have kids, there's a lot going on in the world today, So it could be the safety of our neighborhood and just all the other concerns that obviously I don't want to waste time that were already addressed. So just think about if you lived on College Lane next to Daytop, would you want this in your backyard? Thank you.
All right, appreciate that. Good evening.
All right. My name is Aaron Kelly. I'm on College Lane, but I'm not going to talk about Daytop. So, what I do want to bring up is this, the overlay areas that you're targeting. I think we would all agree that Cold Spring, Millerton, Pauling, Pine Plains are all comparable to our town and our village in population and in sort of the downtown area. So they show that it works. What's the word? Hospitality works. They all have an inn of some type. The part that's different is the overlay that you're targeting. All of their hospitality, their inns, their hotels are all within 6-minute walking distance of the downtown. And these areas are not. I just wonder how that's going to turn out, because if you put hospitality in and then in 3-4 years it fails, then there's just another building sitting there. I mean, the buildings are already sitting there. But if we can target something down here, obviously buying property down here is not as easy, but I think potentially it's setting up for failure. These are 4 towns, like I said, that are comparable to what we have. And I just feel like if it's working for them at the center of town, it should work for us as well. So that's my concern.
The survey results, the residents, actually, their number 1 location that people want hospitality is in the village. And it already has zoning for that.
Right.
So again, what this is allowing is just the possibility of not, and we're not village government, we're just the town. So that's why we're not able to, opine on what more the village could do in that regard.
Correct.
They have the zoning for that, and it would be terrific to have something that would be walking distance in the village.
I'm just saying, I don't know if like, if I go to the Cottonwood, or is that what it's called? Cottonwood? You know, am I gonna go 2 minutes down the road to La Puerta Azul? Or am I gonna come into the village? I don't know. It just doesn't seem reasonable. It seems kind of silly, just from that type of view. Again, I'm not gonna talk on Daytop because that'll be for a different meeting, but I think we might be just a little too far out of the village to be successful to have hospitality in those areas. But that's just my opinion.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Yeah, please.
I'll stand like this. We can look at each other.
We would like you to be
Yeah,
close
okay,
to the
no problem.
microphone and your name and.
Sure. Okay, good evening. My name is Pierre Dourneau. I am the person who you probably want to meet. That's why I dropped letters in your letterbox during the summer. I'm the one who put an offer on the property of Daytop. My background is in hospitality, and I hear all your concerns. You know, the concerns of your little boy and everyone who lives on College Lane. I have opened many places in my professional career, and I always listen. I've always listened to the local community, whether it's traffic studies that will need to get done, or the impact on natural resources, and so on. So you have my word that as long as within this process, I'll have an open door for you to hear what you want to tell me. And I will follow all the guidelines, whether it's of the hospitality overlay, whether we're talking about room count. I hear a lot about wedding. It is not a huge part of my business plan at this stage. I heard 200 people wedding. There's you can fit between 20 and 30, 40 bedrooms maybe within this building. You cannot put 200 people. So I wanted to introduce myself. I came here in April to introduce myself to the board. It was my opportunity tonight to come and introduce myself. Some of you have my emails. I'll stand over there. I'm very happy to give my phone number. I'm going to Europe next week for my mom's birthday, so I'll be away for 2 weeks. I'm very happy to meet you on the property early October. I'm very happy to set up anything that you want to do for us for you at least to hear what I have in mind, and also gather your feedback. I think it is very, very important for me. I would want you to be my customers one day, so it would be a complete own goal for me to go against your feedback and not hear you out. I hope I can come back and stand next to you now.
Were you speaking to me or the lady?
Both of you. You gave me a mean earlier. I was a bit worried. Yeah. I don't know if it's the right forum. I don't know if it's the right forum to take questions. I'm mindful of time.
Yeah,
If there's anything not to do,
No, right.
but I wanted to come and introduce myself. And at least you know me, and I'm not a sketchy person.
So they know how to contact you.
There is my email on the letter I've given. I'm very happy to write it down with my phone number. And not a problem.
Did you sign it?
Yes, I did, absolutely. Yeah, like it.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And I hear your concern. It's completely valid. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay.
I wasn't going to, I'm Howard Schuman, I wasn't going to comment on it. I've been at all the meetings. And the original proposal was to have the Cottonwood Inn as a trial balloon to see how that works before going any further with these hospitalities. Somehow, in between that, it appeared later on in this form that you see it now with the other two being added. I think it's more prudent in terms of what's going to happen here before you get into more infrastructure is to follow what was originally said at the Comprehensive Plan Review Committee, to start with the Cottonwood, which has the best chance of succeeding. It's near the restaurants, it's near Pleasant Valley, which has a lot of other things, and better than rush into something and be sorry later I think it behooves the town to be a little bit more prudent and follow the original recommendations of starting with the Cottonwood Inn and see how that goes. If it goes well, then you go a little further. If it doesn't go well, then you know that hospitality really isn't meant to be a big thing in this particular town. And I wasn't going to speak about it, but I just felt at the end when I heard what was said that maybe it's something that people should be aware of.
Thanks, Howard. Thanks, Howard. Okay, if there's no other comment, Tony?
I'd like to make some comment.
Sure.
Well, you will know me. I've had an Airbnb for a few years now. I mean, I wasn't planning on it, but it just sort of fell in my, and I've been a resident here for 35 years. I started a business, a successful business that I started. I've owned 5 houses in the village that I've redone. I've made the village a better place. And I can't believe that everyone is so worried about sketchy people. You know, I'm sorry. And as far as Daytop is concerned, I live down from the sewer treatment plant. You know, I just sold a house near there. Everybody's saying, well, it's down from the sewer treatment plant. It's gonna be hard to sell. Well, of course it didn't. And the new people are spending so much money on this house. I just, you know, I can't say, oh, well, get rid of the sewage treatment plant. Daytop has been there. We were all worried when Daytop came. Oh my God, what's gonna happen? And nothing happened.
Do you live next to it?
It's a beautiful property.
Do you live next to it?
I live next to 2 doors down from the sewage treatment plant.
No, Daytop. Daytop.
So what? You knew it was there.
It's a legitimate question.
You knew it was there. So, I mean,
It was vacant when we moved there.
You know.
I'll come up and speak after you're done, if you'd like.
I've been through there. It's lovely. We went to
Sure
see
is.
your
No, I
open
agree
house,
with
but you weren't open. Because it's a lovely property and it goes down to College Lane. We need hospitality in Millbrook to survive.
No, we do not.
Not there.
We don't need Airbnb to survive.
I
Yes, we
think Millbrook
do.
has survived very well for the last how many years
No, it
without
hasn't.
it.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna, of course.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to say this. It's really irritating.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Unless you live there.
Okay, so,
That's your opinion, but I share my other.
Oh, yeah. Do you want it? Yeah, I would love to. You're done?
No.
All right.
Me?
Adam Demuth, 82 College Lane, and bonjour. Comment ça va? First and foremost, I work in the hospitality business. I work with Vail Resorts, one of the largest accounts in the United States. I saw Still Mountain go from a mom and pop place to a resort that's unaffordable, and it changed the town. There's no family-owned shops anymore. There's no one that can afford to live in the town of Stowe. It's all second and third homeowners, and it's ruined the town. I think what you're trying to do is a really nice idea. I'm concerned about the traffic, as we all are, with our kids. Bob, thank you for letting my son play in your driveway. Our wells lie below the cesspool that is there. Our wells. That's been vacant for 20 years plus, Daytop. Kurt, it's been vacant for how long?
About 11 years.
11 years. So that's just been sitting. There's been no remediation. Nobody's done a thing about it. There's probably lead as well on that property, correct? We don't know? Okay. Water, wells are a concern. That property's had 4 wells in the matter of the time that it's been open. The idea of trucking water in to fill the wells, well, it hasn't worked in the past, so why would it work now? I think the overlay is, I'd like to see a document showing a map, if you have one accessible to us. So we can
Online.
see online, but we don't have anything physical here to look at. Okay. I stand with all the residents on College Lane. I think trying one spot, Cottonwood, would be a great idea. Going into these areas to put a commercial business that's already residential, well, it was commercial once, it didn't work out, so we reverted back to residential. So now why are we entertaining the idea of converting it back to hospitality? Does Millbrook really need hospitality? Maybe if we lowered the town rents so people could afford the businesses, we'd have more to shop with. Maybe our restaurants would be a little bit better if we could afford the space. It's unaffordable for people. Half of us live off paychecks, half of us live off dividends. Bringing this in would only be a detriment to our area and to our neighborhood. Like everyone else said, if you live next door to it, would you want it in your backyard? I sure as hell would. I grew up in a lake community that opened a winery, and between the noise, the patrons being irresponsible, driving erratically, are we going to have more of a police presence? Are we going to expand Route 82 to allow for turning in and turning out for ingress egress? You know, a tractor trailer going up that hill needs at least 75 feet of turning space. So, you know, there are concerns. I would suggest that the town use their own resources to do these studies for environmental, aquifer, water, instead of letting the purchaser of the property provide his own. Because it's only going to be a benefit to the town if you guys do approve this overlay, correct? So we can afford it now. But I stand with everyone on College Lane. I'll fight this tooth and nail because I don't want people driving up and down my road erratically, having an 8-year-old. And if you lived on my road and you saw the way people drive now, you would be concerned too about having more people coming up and down that line. So thank you. Bought the bin, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you.
On bought the bin.
Thank you.
Bin. Du vin.
On
va arriver ensemble.
For the record, Sandy Allen couldn't be here. She wanted me to pass along her comments. She agrees with the committee's suggestion of Cottonwood in the former Millbrook Inn. Her comments. Okay, so.
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay. Yes, sir. Did you want to say something?
Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to speak?
Yeah, could I speak?
Sure. Your name, please?
Andrew Heaney.
Oh, hey, sorry, I couldn't recognize.
Hi, everybody. First of all, I just want to say, as someone who participated in the fight against Migdale, I want to commend all of the residents of College Lane for coming tonight and making their voices heard. This is what we're supposed to do, you know, to protect our communities and to make our elected representatives who are before us understand our concerns. And so I just want to commend all of you, and I also want to let you know that I empathize with the fear that you feel about the unknown, right? Because right now we don't really know what this project is. We don't know what's been proposed. Nothing has been proposed other than the overlay itself. What was distinct about Migdale was that Will Guidara came to the community and he told everybody that he was going to turn Migdale Castle into a farm-to-table restaurant and a small inn. And basically, everybody in town was like, yeah, that sounds really good. You know, we would actually like that. We'd like to be able to go someplace and have a drink maybe, or have a place where, you know, people can stay or gather. That sounds great. It turns out, though, that was not what he planned at all. He actually planned to build a housing development, replete with 27 homes and multiple cabins and glamping sites. And we're talking about wells and water. Well, that project was sitting on top of the town's aquifer, and all the water that feeds the aquifer comes down off that hill into the village water. And we fought that project for 2 years because in my view, that developer, that person came to us. He was not a hotelier. He did not want to bring hospitality. He wanted to build a housing development. What happened out of that, though, was actually a pretty good thing. What happened was the town began to engage in a debate over the concept of hospitality itself. Did we need it? That answer was not clear how people felt. If you talk to the business owners in the village, they would tell you, yes, absolutely, they need it. They need more people to eat at their restaurants. They need more people buying their buying their products and coming and walking around the village. No one questioned that, at least in the business community in Millbrook, all for it. But then the board engaged in a process that was extremely thoughtful and engaged a group of people in our community who are pillars of our community, people who have been part of this community for decades and decades. And they put together a plan basically to solicit the opinion of the people of this village in a democratic fashion. And they did that. And not only did they do that, they then created a report that is a resource for our village and will be a resource for our village, our town, I should say, for decades to come. It's a really, really incredible document. And so the board initiated that, and they initiated that with care. And by the way, the answer was not necessarily that hospitality was desired. It just turned out that it was. And then we asked people where they wanted it. And as the board member, who also happens to be my wife, said earlier, most of it is wished for in the village, immediately outside the village, and then in the area out in Washington Hollow, not in the R10 or other areas. So I think the thing to consider is that there is at this point a process, and the process is to try to fulfill the goals of that multi-year process where we have solicited the opinion of everybody, and we're all together, right? I understand, as I said, the concerns of the residents. I truly do, but we've engaged in this process, and the board is seeking to find a way to solve this issue that's been put before them. The town has decided it wants and needs hospitality for the long-term vitality of the town. And it goes to the issue, it does go to the issue of property values. It does go to the issue of taxes. These are things that the town board has to consider. And the town board also has to consider your concerns, 100%. And who also has to consider your concerns is our planning board. They are also a protection against irresponsible development. I, for one, stand with you in saying that I do not want irresponsible development. I do not want traffic affecting you. I don't live next to this property, but I don't want that happening to you. I don't want bad things happening to you. I don't want your kids to be put in harm's way. What I want is I would like there to be a process where the town has the ability to bring itself the things that it needs in places where it might be appropriate. And then I think that, the gentleman who stood up and is saying that he's going to propose something to us, he has to be answerable to all of us as to whether or not he's going to act in a responsible manner. And we will all be heard by that. But I just wanted to say that, just to consider the possibility, and that, a place, a small inn with a really nice restaurant and a really nice bar, if it's done properly, might not be a danger, to the community, might not cause too much traffic, might improve property values, might be a good thing. We don't know. I'm not arguing with you. We don't know. But just consider, I just would argue that perhaps we should consider the possibility only, that it could be a positive if it's done in the right way. And with that, I thank you all for listening to me.
Thank you. Thanks, Andrew. All right, we have another.
Is there anyone else on Zoom?
What's that?
I don't see any other.
Okay. We have another public hearing, so I'd like to close this off. Is there any one last comment?
One thing to say. They did see a nice bobcat up on the property today. Apparently they're extremely experienced, and they said it's the 5th or 6th one they've seen this year. So we're making a comeback. And my big concern up there is water, but I have to stand with my neighbors, and I just, Mike, everyone else, Mr. Audie, you've been extremely patient, and I appreciate it, but I'm concerned for the kids. I walk down College Lane all the time. Beautiful kids on that road. Being my age, as you can see, I appreciate children. Mine are taller, more handsome, smarter now, more educated, and don't want to spend that much time around me, so I enjoy seeing kids. But,
Thank you.
I'm very concerned about water and septic, but I would appreciate if you guys could like throw in a drive-through Starbucks up on top of the hill. Because Mr. Tompkins knows I'm an addict. I admit it, it's my one big vice. But if you could throw that in the plan too, I'd appreciate
They
it.
might hang you first. but-
Well, they might, but I'd appreciate it.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Can I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
I know we all, sorry, everybody. I know we all said that, you know, was an inn and everything else, but let's not forget, originally it was a house. It's all residential around there, and.
It was originally a farm, the whole hill, yes.
Okay.
So that was the main house.
So, that's what I wanted to say, thank you.
Okay,
Real quick, my name is Alan Meyer, and just real, I think I want to expound on what they're all saying. But I hope that when this all comes down to consideration, that we consider, I don't know how to say this right, but maybe the middle income to the little bit lower than that. And, because my daughter comes up to visit me from Florida, and I can't put her in my apartment, so cramped. I'd like to be able to have a place, an option in Millbrook, and not have to send her to Poughkeepsie.
thank
You know, an
you.
option, it wouldn't break her bank.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
The next,
We have another public hearing after that.
short-term rentals.
Just let this.
Thanks, thanks for coming.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah,
Thanks for coming.
Have a great.
Appreciate you coming. Thanks, Alan.
Yeah, but is the question, is the Cottonwood Hotel actually operating or?
They say yes, but I've never seen anything there. though.
You don't need an ad for it.
Call the number and see if anybody answers.
Yeah, but, you know, I mean,
They do take a.
wow.
What's your question about the cost? I know a lot about it. What's your question about the cost? I don't know about it.
Is it an operating hotel?
Yeah, it's still in it, still. The motel is still there and it's on.
Yeah.
Howard, we still have a meeting going on? Alan.
They don't want to
Do this another
We're
time.
done with that.
Okay.
We're done.
Thank you.
A motion to close the public hearing and,
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second.
Right.
Aye.
All in favor? A motion to, open the public hearing on short-term rentals.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Public hearing is open on short-term rentals. We would like to do the same, process as we just did. Identify who you are, please come forward. And, again, this is not a debate between you and us. We're just here to listen, all right?
Prior to anyone speaking, we did receive a number of written comments for people who either were attending tonight, didn't wish to speak, or were unable to attend. They have been collected by the town clerk. They will be part of the minutes and they will be posted along with the minutes of the meeting. So if you have submitted a written response to our request for a public hearing on short-term rental, and you're here this evening, we know the board is aware of what your concerns are. We would like to ask those that haven't to have priority in speaking so that we can move this along. So that's where we are right now.
Yeah.
So this is the second draft of the original, this is the second draft of a proposed short-term rental code for the town of Washington. We did receive a number of verbal comments at the first public hearing. We also have received a number of written comments, both from planning board, from CAC, from the county. We held a meeting after that public hearing whereby the committee went through all of those concerns, which allowed us to draft the second edition, which we presented at the last meeting. Therefore, we had to have this public hearing. And I'll be honest with you, some of the written comments that we've received were from people that did not attend the first public hearing, and it was a little bit repetitive of what had occurred in the first, but we're still looking for more information, so if anyone wishes to speak, please come forward.
Well, I guess my question is, what's
Did you
the?
please?
Oh, really?
Yeah. This is prime time now.
You're on top. You can have it for the run.
And this mic is probably more sensitive.
This is a
so
better
just sit
one?
there, yeah.
Okay,
Just
so,
identify yourself.
yep, so I'm Marlene Weber Garnett, and I live at 164 Nine Partners Lane, and I started an Airbnb because I just sold my business of 47 years and retired. So now I have an Airbnb, which is lovely, and I'm happy. I love it. I just love entertaining. Now you can all pay me to feed you. No, I don't really feed people, but anyway, it's fun and I'm enjoying it. And my guests are so cool. There's not one guest that's sketchy. I haven't had one sketchy guest. I did have a child come with rollerblades, which was annoying in the house, but other than that, it's been wonderful. My question is, what's changed in the document, in the requirements from the last time to now? Because there are some changes. It seems a little lighter. Yeah, not as much gobbledygook
I know.
or
we had-
requirements.
I know we had a big question in the last meeting on a very technical paragraph at the end,
Mhm.
which talked about existing laws and the protections that are the requirements within the short-term rental
Right.
and how they do not supersede existing laws.
Mhm.
But I don't know of any other requirements that occur
Well,
that are different.
originally we were supposed to, you have to be on site. Do you still have to be on site as the owner in order to have a guest in your home? Has that changed?
No, if you read the document, even the original one that we rewrote to submit because of other issues, the donor or the owner occupied was never in our document. What it was owner responsibility, which means that it can be a structure that's on a property
Right.
that people are in. The
Like a
owner might
barn, for
be-
example,
Yeah,
offsite,
barn, or
yeah.
person might be 50 yards up the road
Right.
in the main house.
Right.
Or they may be absentee, they may be
Right.
from another community.
Is that allowed?
That is allowed. What's going to be required though, is on the application form, the owner's name, the owner's address, the owner's phone number, the owner's location, the proof of ownership, and on the application, who has that person designated as the local person responsible for oversight of that short-term rental.
Okay, that's clear. And that's not my issue because that's not the situation. People are in my home while I'm there and I'm always there. So that's not an issue for me, but I know other people are concerned about it. The other thing is what about multiple locations? What if I were to buy another building and I want it to be just an Airbnb, a house or
A
something?
short-term rental person is allowed 2 permits, but only 1 on their property.
Okay,
So they can have 1 on your property, and if you bought a place someplace else, you want to do a second one in the town of Washington,
right,
you would be able to have 2 permits.
gotcha.
Beyond that, if you wanted to do more than that,
Mhm.
you would have to go to the planning board for special use
Okay.
permission. Correct, Jeff? Special use on another site.
I don't think you could do that.
No.
Limited to, so what about the person that was here last time that has several places?
That person can apply for a bed, there are bed and breakfast permits.
Oh, okay.
That's a different,
That would be different.
Okay, oh, that's a whole different thing. All right, thank you.
Yeah, she
Good.
was our biggest concern.
Yeah, okay, good.
And we
Thank
tried
you.
to address her issue, but with having multiple sites on her property, she's only allowed really 1, and then she's gotta look to maybe make them bed and breakfast or whatever else she might.
Wow.
That's special use permit.
Wow, so that's breakfast. Mm. Thank you.
Thanks, Marlene.
Thanks so much.
Anyone else? I think that's your choice. Yep.
If you don't mind.
Absolutely.
My name is Richard Phillips, and I am a member of the committee that put together this proposed law on short-term rentals. And I read some of the comments in the letter form that we received, and I thought that I would speak here to clear up some misinformation that people may have, and to clarify some legal points. I'd also like to thank the board for appointing me to this. I'm honored and a pleasure to serve on the board with Mike and Bob.
Be careful what you say.
Jeff, yeah, I know. But it's really been a long process. We're working on this for 9 months. And early on in the process, we received documentation Mike and Jeff put together a whole background of legal documents that we reviewed to see if we're going to write this law, what was the background law in place so that we would be writing something that was appropriate and something that was in line with what other townships had already done. And one of the first things we discussed was owner occupancy. And it's amazing that a lot of people, and some of the comments from FOTAO and Leslie and CAC, all center on owner occupancy. And owner occupancy is a residency requirement, so that a resident of the town is the only people that can provide STR. Well, we dealt with that very early on. There is a law, United States, a federal law, known as the Dormant Common Clause. And in the Dormant Common Clause, it's a violation of that law to impose residency requirements on any STR, thereby discriminating against interstate commerce. So in short, you can't say to someone out of state or out of town that you can't run a business in this town because you're not a resident. That's illegal. And it's illegal to write a law that's illegal. And so we wrote a law that does not have a residency requirement, does not have something that has own occupancy. We wrote one without that, but we made anybody applying for a permit legally responsible for how that is run. And so,
Well,
go ahead, Leslie.
I mean, I don't want to get into a legal debate, but I think that law holds in Louisiana, and someone could certainly come to the town of Washington and make that argument. Okay, but it doesn't mean that that argument is going to hold. It is a circuit court, it's a federal court, but in Louisiana,
The fifth.
and there's a lot of municipalities in New York State who have owner occupied. So, you know, anyone can come and make an argument about anything.
Right.
The judge here might decide that they agree with that argument or they don't. So
Right.
while it's not saying that there isn't any precedent, there is precedent
Right.
out there, but whether that precedent would hold here would be up to a judge here if someone brought that argument here. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, I
think the
do see what
Dormant
you're saying.
Commerce Clause is, in my view, this is why I raised it, but I didn't want to have it, but you brought it up and you named me, so I will respond to
Okay.
it. But is that, you know, New Orleans being a very touristy area, right? It sounds like they had a lot of people who had Airbnbs there, right?
Mhm.
And then they outlawed them, and then
Short-term rentals.
Short-term rentals,
I
right.
keep saying Airbnbs, it's like Kleenex.
Yeah, right.
Sorry about that.
Yes.
But short-term rentals, and so in response to that, they then brought that, because there was a lot of out-of-state investment here. I don't see, based on, you know, the people that it just came tonight and who's doing that there would be, you know, there's that much of interstate or out-of-state investment in the town of Washington currently. Doesn't mean that there couldn't be, but I am less concerned about that than I was when I thought that it was a New York State case. So,
Okay, just to take one step further, to clarify it. The Commerce Clause gives the federal government the authority to regulate commerce with and between states and among others, while the Dormant Commerce Clause prohibits states from passing legislation that discriminates against or excessively burdens interstate commerce. The court noted that these restraints upon states apply to municipalities as well. So it's a federal law. Dormant Common Clause is a federal law, right? And that's what we responded to when we wrote this, when we put together this legislation. I'll leave that as it may. I'll leave it, but I just leave it as it may. I have some further comments to make though, because we did work on it quite a bit. Let me just read that. So in response to the concern that if we didn't have owner occupancy, we would have outside investors flocking to the town of Washington in order to profit by creating all these STRs. So I just thought I would give us a larger perspective which to really think about that. First of all, the town of Washington is not a resort town. People who want to take advantage of SDRs and stay in the town of Washington do it for, let's say, equestrian events, hunting, fishing, Sandinova, Tamarack, the Millbrook Winery, leafers, leafing season.
Or shows.
Right, right. But they don't come here because we have a beach or it's not a resort town. There's no shoreline. There's no lakefront. It's not the Hamptons and it's not the Jersey Shore. So those are the kinds of environments where STRs thrive because there's a demand for STRs. Occupancy rates in the town of Washington for STRs are projected at less than 50%. A brief survey of the hosting websites, and I've done this, shows that there's an average of 10 to 12 STRs in the town of Washington at any given time on these hosting websites. Many are cabins and apartments. Only 5 or 6 are whole homes for rent. Most are offered by or managed by the owners and they're owner operated. These facilities are available on a continuing basis, but they're not rented all the time. They're not showing great demand. In short, there's very little demand for additional STRs. Any future demand for hospitality would likely be met by the anticipated proposed hotels in the overlay. Remember, STRs already here in the town of Washington, and they have been for a while. If there's going to be any great demand by outside investor groups, especially with those with the low interest rates environment, the quantitative easing and zero interest rates from the Great Recession and the pandemic, we would have already have seen that growth in STRs. We haven't. Today, with mortgage rates above 7% and likely to settle at historic rates of 5 to 6%. These rates will not favor this kind of speculative investment in STRs. Finally, granting of a permit is a privilege and not a right, and permits may be revoked.
Richard, thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you, Richard.
Richard, you left a few.
On my papers.
Anyone else?
I waited till last, but I already gave you something. I would like to comment after.
I am Tim Colopy. I'm a resident, live on Franklin Avenue, also the mayor of the village of Millbrook. And full disclosure, we're working on our own STR right now. One of the concerns I have is that there's no cap on the number of permits that you can issue based on this. Is that, I understand it correctly?
The committee reviewed that. We looked at a lottery system. We looked at grandfathering. We felt that marketplace would determine how many STRs would occur in the town. The projection 2.5 years ago, there were over 40. Dealing with the contractor that's going to be helping us oversee this process, did a daily survey the day we had him online. He said that right now they were thinking there were close to just 32. Our logic in developing, not limiting the number, was that the marketplace would determine the number. If people were doing this investment in their properties, but as was just mentioned, they're not getting rented currently, eventually they would disappear. Now, if that was to change, just like any law in the town, and it was become overwhelming with STRs, we can always go back and review the law and then perhaps put in restrictions.
But the purpose of putting the law in place, and this is true in the village as well, is we're trying to control it now before it gets out of control.
We're trying to control the permitting process currently. Yes.
But you don't, without a limit, I think you're open to, even though the previous gentleman says it's unlikely, doesn't matter, things could change, and you get yourself in a situation where it's out of control despite your law. And I just think it's short-sighted not to consider a cap. Okay.
Look, how are we basing more logic on a cap and what, meaning, what is the village talking about around?
A cap.
You're talking about, you said.
We have a number.
And you're capping it, how do you?
But how are you?
We're looking at what's currently active, and we're saying, well, there's a debate right now amongst the board.
Okay.
I want to cap it where it is. Which is
at what?
Which is like 14, something like that. And that's an estimate, by the way.
Where do
We don't know.
So you say 14 and you want to cap it at 14.
Well, that's me.
No, but wait, Tim,
Yeah.
you have to have a reason for that. Like why, 14, why, like as opposed to 20. It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to control, limit, and restrict further growth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay.
And the purpose of the law is to put in place controls so that we have control over it. There is a permit process. There's a violation process. You all have that. And just to define, what is acceptable, what's not acceptable. And in my mind, it's something we want to make sure doesn't get out of control.
Right.
And that's why I'm saying to the board, I recommend it be a cap.
Or who are you using for your enforcement? Are you using Granicus?
Well, we'll be employing Granicus, but I mean, it's going to be the code enforcement officer will be our enforcer.
And
Granicus is going to be like a monitor.
Right.
With
Same with
activity.
us.
And Tim, I think both you and I need to clarify that to the community, because I've been approached, and I don't know if you have either. People have come up to me and say, why are you abdicating your authority over these existing structures to an outside entity like Granicus?
Oh, no.
We are not.
No.
Granicus is basically a resource company that will assist us in alerting us to who's renting, when they're renting, so that we can start tracking it. That our enforcement will occur, like your enforcement with the building inspector, the permitting process, all the penalties for ignoring what is required and pulling permits.
And by the way, one thing of caution is, which is a consideration for our law, is we have to make sure we don't put in here requirements that aren't enforceable. So Granicus doesn't do as much as you might think it could do. And between Granicus and our enforcement officer, if we can't actually monitor and enforce, there's no sense in the law.
Right.
Okay, and so we're dealing with that right now, a couple of issues. So just heads up to that as well. Okay.
Noise being the biggest
Thank you.
one, right?
Huh?
Noise being one of the biggest.
That's one of them, but that's, people like to have multiple, rentals during the same week. Granicus can't monitor them. That's a problem.
Is the village considering capping the number of days that someone can?
Yeah, we have a proposal now that has that. We're working on a draft, a proposal. Just to tell you, as far as our process, last month, we had some good feedback from some Airbnb owners, came forward and said, here's the concerns with what your current draft proposal is. We're hoping to have feedback at next Wednesday's board meeting from neighbors of Airbnbs to get the other perspective as we try to formulate just what this thing ought to look like.
What kind of feedback are you getting from the Airbnb?
Short-term.
Well, we have put a lot of restrictions, in that they don't like.
Okay, like
And-
what kind of restrictions do they find?
Oh, I can't go through the details right now, but we have like the number of days per year. Owner occupancy is a big thing with us. Right now, it says, at least there 6 months and a day, that's your primary residence. We're looking at that, and now we're talking about, well, what we're gonna do about the current Airbnbs versus the new ones that come in. Maybe we can segregate that, do some grandfathering. That's a consideration zone. So that's a work in progress.
Thanks.
Thanks, Bill.
And of course, we'll get Mike apprised of all of our updates as we go.
I'd like to make a request of Mary. Every time someone says Airbnb, please convert that to short-term rental. Airbnb is the corporate name, and there has been rumors among other communities that Airbnb is now beginning to think of legal action against communities because it's disparity on their name. So we gotta be careful.
Yeah.
So when you are talking this subject, make sure you're using short-term rentals and not Airbnb. Because there are several platforms besides Airbnb, HomeAway, VRBO, there's a whole bunch of them now. So let's just be careful with the use of the term.
Adelaide, if you want to say something.
Any other comments?
Adelaide.
I don't
No?
know, I've heard from me a lot. Do you want me to, I mean.
Sit down.
I didn't have a formal comment plan here, but I want to say a number of things. First of all, Airbnb doesn't want you to talk about them because they've been criticized a lot, and it's known nationwide, and the press lately has ballooned over Airbnb's problems that they're causing in the community. STRs are Airbnbs. They're really interchangeable. So saying that we can't use Airbnb as a name is just their marketing ploy. It's an online program that commercializes homes. It monetizes our homes. So
To your comments, Richard, about there aren't that many happening here, I've seen like 3 or 4 in my neighborhood during COVID. I don't know the people on Stanford Road that much anymore. I would walk Woodstock and Stanford, and there are strangers throughout. And during COVID, I thought, okay, it's people just staying up here. But it's not just that. There are people that are just, it changes the tenor of the neighborhood. You say hello to them and they don't say hello because they're on vacation, they don't care, or whatever it is. And I'm not judging them per se, and I'm not worried about people using that horrible word sketchy here a lot. That is not an issue that I'm concerned with. I am concerned with changing a community from a residential home and a place that you call home to a commercial entity. You are talking about, I live next to 2 very large homes, very close to them. Well, close, 200 to 600 feet in some instances. I can hear them calling for their dog. I can hear music at night. I can hear things. So you think that we're on these leafy parcels and it's very quiet in the town, but this law opens it up for anybody to have an Airbnb without the requirement of an owner. No one is worried about Marlene or a Tony's Airbnbs. Those are regulated. The state regulates that they have to be owner occupied for a reason, because it's well documented in numerous places that people are better prepared, they're better behaved when the owner is there. And there's a resident there that has your back. There's somebody there to call. Am I going to call Granicus in the middle of the night when I hear odd gunshots or music that hasn't stopped or lights that are inappropriate? Am I going to call Granicus, Mike? Is that who we would call? Who would we call in the town?
You would call either our building inspector's office or Granicus.
In the middle of the night on a Saturday at 2 in the morning?
If you hear gunshots, you should call police.
Yeah. Well, I heard that happen once during the
But on
pandemic.
on the application, you said that there has to be a contact person.
So 2 in the morning, and this has happened, so 2 in the morning, who am I
As
calling?
well as the owner contact information. So it could be one and the same, or it could be an owner that's not in the property, but has a supervisor that oversees the property.
Right.
You'll have that information. Those are the people that we're going to have to enforce, and if it's not enforced, we have actions that we can take.
So I have a question. All right, so one of your complaints, what would it be? Would it be loud noise? Would it be?
Well, that's one of the issues,
You know what
is
I mean?
noise ordinances that
Yeah.
I've been talking about doing for 20 years.
Yeah,
And they never happen here. We try it, nobody carries it
So
through.
what would be a problem, as an example, that you would need to contact? What- Somebody yelling and screaming?
Yeah,
Like
loud
what?
music and
Loud music?
or.
What happens?
I don't know. I
Yeah.
if you want me to come
Right.
up with worst
Okay.
case scenarios,
Yeah.
yeah, there could be
So
anything,
let's-
right?
let's just go
When you're
through this
inviting
first. Yeah, let's just go through
hundreds of
this,
strangers to your neighborhood, what would
Right.
be the problem? You tell
Yeah.
me.
Well, you're the one with the concern, right? We're
You
listening
don't
to
have a
your
concern about the neighbor's safety,
Okay,
with
I'm gonna
strangers?
finish my question.
Okay.
I'm gonna finish my question. So you might have a concern with an Airbnb user, right? What happens if you live next door to somebody who lives in a house, in a residential house, just a residential? And their children are yelling and screaming, and who would you call?
I think that you're mixing apples and
No,
oranges, and
no,
that's
I'm
not
not.
at all what I'm
It's
talking
the same,
about.
yes, it is.
No, I'm talking about emergency situations that are frightening and threatening, not children crying and screaming.
Okay,
And,
so.
and I'm not talking about people having a good time partying. I've tolerated, plenty of noise.
Okay.
I'm talking about.
What I'm trying to reach out from you is just call the police if there's a safety concern. Call the police.
Well.
That should be your first call 911. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Right.
Call
Well, I understand.
911.
Yeah.
Anything with safety.
Well, we don't have a
call
local
911.
police force. I'd be
Yeah.
calling the sheriff's department for noise.
That should
or
be
for a
above and
noise complaint.
beyond. Don't bother the Airbnb. Call 911 if you think
If
something's
it's that. I understand your point, but that's not really my entire point.
Okay.
My entire point, that I still think someone has to, I think when there's an owner on the property, that these problems happen much less. It's well documented. And I don't agree at all with what Richard said, and I don't think you're an attorney, right, Richard?
No, I'm not.
Okay. That I don't agree at all with this whole analysis of the law that it's illegal to require that. Many towns do it. It's well documented. The Association of Towns says you could do it. People recommend it because it's a safer way to bring commercial businesses into a residential community. So I'm not really sure exactly what the motivation is to expand it. First of all, there aren't 12 STRs, there are 42 in the town. Okay. And you have no cap on it. 42 is a lot of people. If you have a very excessive limit of 18, I think, or no, 12. So 12 people, which is 2 more than a B&B can have.
And we know that we discussed this too, the B&Bs, because they are bread and breakfasts, fall under different codes. The established code of 10 was established under that code, but also because they fall into food service, health department, those kinds of inspections.
Right.
A short-term rental does not do any of that stuff.
How do you know? How do you know that's not happening? Are you going to go? How do you go into people's homes and monitor that? I mean, how do you know they're not?
Also, the platforms also monitor the service of food and so on, because all of these owners, and I'm speaking in general, all of these owners are very sensitive to how they're presenting their products, because they all get ranked on the platforms. That determines then the quality of what they're providing.
I know how marketing works in Airbnb, Mike. I really do.
I'm not arguing,
But
I'm just saying an example. Now,
it's just not solving my problem.
but a short-term, and I'm going along with a little bit of what Joe was saying, it's not a debate, but I just want to give an example to everyone who may be listening. Short-term rentals are 31 days or less.
Yes, I know.
Many are advocating for owner-occupied. A long-term rental, which may be on some of your own streets,
yes,
is longer than that. So therefore, there's no owner-occupied in the long-term rental of 33 days or more, but people are pushing for owner-occupied of 31 days or less.
Because do you know why? Do you know why?
In each situation, it would be irresponsible of us to presuppose that the people coming into either of those entities were not going to occupy and live as good citizens. However, we know for a fact that happens in communities, long-term renters are sometimes an issue with a neighbor, and a short-term rental can be an issue with a renter. This long-term issue renter, you call the landlord or you call the owner, and that gets settled, or you call the town hall and they come down and they oversee what the restrictions are and are they violating those. The short-term rental procedure is the same thing, only it's a different person every few days. But we're presupposing that people coming into either the long-term or the short-term are somehow going to be not good citizens. Now, at times,
we're not presupposing that. That's documented evidence.
So therefore, if they do violate specific to the short-term rental guidelines that we've established on noise, use of ATVs, 11 o'clock curfew, all of that, if those violations occur, and we get calls on that either through Granicus to James or directly to James or from the police department, that a call has come in because somebody fired off fireworks.
Okay,
at a
I
gun,
understand how the process works. I don't think we have to.
we would then act on that, and if it happened too often, the permit gets pulled. They no longer exist as a short-term rental.
So there's a lot of, okay, there's a lot to unpack there, but there's, and there isn't a lot to unpack there at the same time, because all of this evidence about Airbnbs and short-term rentals aren't me making it up about the people that are going to be there. Not me making it up about the type of people. It's not a judgment on the type of people. It's hotel and the industry calculations of the patterns of people and how they travel. And short term, they care, they're there for a little while. They don't care maybe to throw something in the water. They may not care about, overflowing the septic or put something in the well. I've experienced that. I mean, people's septics fail, things happen. Granicus or the police or someone there in the middle of the night isn't going to help that. I just don't understand why you'd want to add that to the community. I know you're an STR owner of 2 out-of-state STRs, so I
No,
would
that's-
assume that
that's
makes you,
incorrect.
you told me you have one in Algonquin.
I have a
and-
summer
and so-
rental.
And very
and
nice.
it's a seasonal rental up in Maine, and I used to rent out a property in Charleston, no longer.
Okay, so now you have one.
I have 2 properties.
Okay, so
no longer.
my point is, that's lovely, you have it, great areas, but,
And this is not about me.
but you're the chair of this task force that we've never seen a public meeting with, and who've been doing this research.
We've had public meetings.
You had one public hearing, you've been meeting for 3 years, but nobody even knew that. That's what you're saying, that you've been meeting. Right? I mean, I'm just saying, this all came as a big surprise, like, all of a sudden, we have 42 STRs in the community. We have, you can turn your home with this law into a small hotel. You're making them the size of small boutique hotels. Why we're doing this with the hotel overlay going on and all the proposals for hotels is beyond me. I just don't understand the reasoning, except, and let me finish, except that the county is the only one getting these taxes. Are you doing, and the county obviously is happy to pay you for Granicus, to use Granicus, because the county wants to push Airbnbs, apparently. At least that's what it looks like. So I'm not really sure where this started as an issue, why we're growing this, why we are willing to change rural communities and quiet back roads into small Airbnbs without having the requirement of an Airbnb. You are actually commercializing homes by doing it. I don't understand your motivation for doing it at all. It is not because we're working on other hospitality options.
The motivation for it was 4.5 years ago, we became aware that there were short-term rentals running their businesses within the town of Washington. 4 years ago.
Right.
We started looking into the issue of short-term rentals, investigating communities, attending state presentations on short-term rentals.
Mhm.
The purpose of us getting involved in it was we needed to know who they were, where they were, and were they providing safe visitation residence for guests coming into this community.
Okay, so now you have 42, you found out.
Back then, the county told us the number because in order for those people to run the short-term rental, they had to get a tax number. And once that tax number was issued, they were under the impression that they could go ahead and open a short-term rental. But there was no code that allowed them to do that. So therefore, we had to catch up and get a hold on the short-term rental
Okay.
business in the town.
So you
Therefore,
did-
codes had to be adopted.
Right.
Thus, this
No, I'm not
process
arguing with
the law.
I'm not arguing with regulating what you have. I have a problem with the fact that you want to expand it. You don't have a cap. You want to put 12 people instead of like a more modest number of 4 to 6 in people's homes deep inside neighborhoods.
12 is.
12 is more than, that's well, in many people's estimations, a very excessive amount.
It depends on the size of the structure.
And the size of the structure depends on where it's located on the property. You could be in the middle of 100 acres and nobody will hear you, and maybe you have a big house and 12 people doesn't seem like a lot. But if you're only a couple hundred feet from a house next to you, 12 people is a party. 12 people is a lot. Okay. But we're not talking about families, Joe. I know we're talking about commercial businesses and
But
travelers.
isn't it, just so I understand, isn't it better to have it controlled? I mean, if there was nothing.
It
And
is.
somebody wanted to, these people next to you wanted to
Mhm.
open up a short-term rental with no controls, we would have no control and you wouldn't either.
But-
If they got
Well,
wild and crazy.
it seems like it is better to have controls, but what I'm arguing is this doesn't control it nearly enough as you think it does, Gary. Because, for a lot of reasons, you don't have you prohibit noise. Some of those controls in there are very good. You prohibit noise, and I'm sorry that I'm talking at the end and you guys have been sitting here for like 3 years with this, but, I wasn't planning on doing this, but you have a limit to the number of people, but you have these ordinances that say you can't have a lot of noise or you prohibit it. the town doesn't have a noise ordinance or a lighting ordinance right now. So how can you enforce that for STRs when you don't even enforce it or protect residents with it? I mean, is that enforceable?
Residents complain about noise, right? So if we get a noise complaint, the owner has to either correct it or lose his permit.
Well, why wouldn't you put a noise ordinance in the town
Because
generally?
noise ordinance don't work in any town.
Well, I would, well, that's
We
another.
we know that for a fact.
I don't, who's we?
Well, I know it for a fact.
And how do you know that?
Because I've asked many municipalities, and it's hard, you know,
It's
you
hard- they're
can
hard to
call and
enforce.
say the decimals are 21 over there, but can you prove it?
Yeah. They are harder to enforce, but these
Almost
people have a
impossible.
these people have a mechanism. Does someone else want to speak? I'm happy to
Yeah, we
end it.
gotta-
Yeah.
Well, I thought I was the last person here speaking.
No.
All right. Well, happy to end it.
And
But
you also have
I think,
the other information.
well, I think this law is not nearly ready to pass and it really needs a lot of revision. But
Thank you.
Thanks, Edwin.
Thank you.
I want to wrap it up, Howard, yeah. Let's make it short.
I'll be short. I won't speak as eloquently as Adelaide did, and I think the issue at hand, briefly, is that I've been around, and some of you know, not maybe not as long as Bob, but generally been around since 1972 and involved in all of these things. And I've been at all of the committees, the committee, constitution, the comprehensive plan committees. I served on the land use committee and the last comprehensive plan. And starting as far as I can go back to 1968, probably a little further, and so are you, and you are too, but you're not as old. And it's always been the same thing. This town has always wanted to be a rural town with a good environment and with one business center in the village. And I'm not against somebody having an Airbnb in their home. I think you read the letter I submitted to you. I am against bringing in outside people who don't live here and don't have an Airbnb in their home, and this is a commercial venture for them. I think that's dangerous for the town in the long run. There are cases, and I think I heard Mike speak of them in a couple of instances, where entire neighborhoods have been changed over completely by this eventually, which is not, I think, what we want in this town. I think most people are very glad to live here, and I think we should try to proceed in what's good for the people who live here, not investors from someplace else. Basically, I'm saying that I think there's a substantive change that could be made in this, if you consider it. That you could take a good look again at what you've got, reconstitute your committee, maybe bring in a few other people as well, with the goal of investigating what would be the benefits of what would we have if we had owner-occupied, owner-hosted people running these Airbnbs. Now, in terms of the law, there's also, I heard somebody talk about the fifth Supreme Court area. There's a sixth Supreme Court area someplace else that has said just the opposite. It's on the record. I did contact the Association of Towns, and they also said that there's another Supreme Court, not the fifth, but the sixth. Now, what was the name of the thing that you brought up? I have to look it up otherwise.
Dormant Commerce Clause.
Yeah, that it's not a firm law throughout the country. It was upheld as not being enforceable in another Supreme Court area. So the argument that you have to do this because it was done in Louisiana is not true, according to the person from the town and home.
We've heard this 4 times already tonight.
Well, what I'm saying is, I think you should take a look at. Let's go back to the my bottom recommendations. You really should take a look at owner occupied. You should have a committee work on that and come up with a resolution, whether it's feasible or not. And the meeting should be open to the public, like all the other meetings have been in the past, so people can be involved in this and say, this is what we want, this is not what we don't want. Instead of having this already, looks like to me that you guys have made up your minds.
Right.
It's a fact already done. I don't think that's the way it's proceeded in this town before. I really think that
Every time we have a public hearing, Howard, it's because there was a lot of work done.
now,
And then, now we're listening to everybody. So we've already redid it once. And we
very
listened to
little change
everybody.
in what you did. I read it over. Very little change. You should take a look at the letter from the Dutchess County Planning, who, in my opinion, is always a little too liberal for my taste. They, in this case, said that a lot of the dangers of the owner of the SDRs could be eliminated, ameliorated slightly, if you only allow them to be owner occupied. It would allow people to live in that neighborhood, and instead of having those neighborhoods be commercialized and people forced out. And this is the county planning saying, this is not me saying that. I think you should read that if you haven't already.
We've read it.
All right.
You don't agree with it?
Well, I have to tell you that I feel the same way Mike does. I mean, we have all these out there already. And I think that, with the constraints that we put on the owner of a STR, that we can control it. And I think that, you know, I can't see us getting 60, 70, 80 short-term rentals I don't know who's gonna stay in them. Where are they going?
Well, the
Where are
trend
they-
seems to be to go the other way, that you should start with people who are in that house and they are the host of the house. This is the trend as this has been getting bigger around the country. New York City has passed a law like that.
You know, could I just say one thing? I want to clarify, it's good that we're regulating. It's not about not regulating, it's about the effectiveness of the law you go. And so you have 42, you want to break, that's a lot. And according with it, if everyone had a 12-person maximum limit, there's like 500 people you're just putting into the town. But
You'd have to have an awful big house to have 12 people, so.
well, I live between awful big houses. I mean, there are a lot of awful big houses in the town of Washington. But, you know, and I'm not saying that's gonna happen there, I'm just saying you're opening up that possibility. And the thing is, you wanna regulate them, there's enough, but you're giving away a second permit. Sorry, Howard, take your time, but
All right, we
you're
want
giving
to
away
wrap this
2
up.
permits now. Why would you do that? If you want to control 42, why wouldn't you have it, and why would you do a second permit?
Okay.
What is the harm about starting slowly with people's homes? And if you have a home and you want to make some money out of your house, that you can do that. Why do you want to bring commercial into a town that which for 50 years that I've been here has always fought to be a rural town with an atmosphere that people want to come here? That's the business of the town, by the way. People say, do you have a business in this town? That is the business. I mean, people live in this town who pay your taxes and are not a burden on anything, and the environment stays well, and people come here. That's our business. Why would you want to jeopardize that at this point in time, when the only real solution to this is to start and allow the town to have what they've always had in the comprehensive plan? They've never changed it. It's always have a, all right, never mind, Gary, I see it.
Well, you need refreshments, that's the problem, Gary.
What?
You have to have refreshments at your public.
It'd be
The
okay
problem
with
is,
me.
there's no food or anything to drink, people are.
One of the conversations we had, Howard, and you guys everybody can listen to it, is that, you know, let's say you have an owner occupied and he's renting the barn on his property, and made it into a nice little, it's been an apartment for years, and he rents it out, okay? If he allows people to party and have noise and stuff, or he has a swimming pool in the backyard, he allows 20 people to come over and swim in his swimming pool, they make a lot of noise. I mean, my grandkids come to my house and I call the neighbors and say, are you okay with the noise? And they go, oh, we love listening to the kids scream and yell all day long.
That's the
Well,
whole
you know,
point.
well, you know,
They're occupied and they're part of the community.
okay, but we have restrictions in this law that says if they don't behave, if they have parties, if they have noise, they're done. It's gone. It's the same whether it's owner occupied or not owner occupied. And that's our view we think that with
Not
the
what the
controls that we
literature says.
have,
The literature says that it's more difficult to control it if it's not owner occupied and the host is present. It doesn't say it's impossible. It says it's more difficult and it has a detrimental
What would be
effect on the
difficult for
neighborhood.
us if people don't obey the rules, they lose their permit. They no longer have a short-term rental. And therefore, if they live in Boston, what are they gonna do with the house? What are they gonna do with it if they don't control it? They're gonna lose it, period.
Is there a process for grievance? I don't.
Oh, absolutely. We have it all mapped out in the law. Absolutely.
This process.
Okay,
This process currently in the town?
I think we've covered it.
Gary, can I just make a comment on the side? If I, as a resident, not as a CAC member, I just think there should be a cap on the number. I think it should double what the village does. So whatever their decision is, I think the town should be double. That's my opinion.
Thank you, Margaret.
Thanks, Margaret.
Do any of you live next door to an STR or?
No, but I walk my dog every day and I know there's plenty of them in the village.
I live a few houses.
And I see them all. And I know, you just, if you saw the letter from, Mr. Topowski, there's an STR next to him, it's my aunt's old house, and then somebody put a lot of money in that place. But I'll be honest with you, in the last 6 months, I don't think I've seen any cars there until recently. And if I did see a car there, it was like for an overnight or something,
Well,
and they were gone the next day. So I don't know.
Did you read that guy's letter in the Militant paper by any chance?
I did not.
I see, did you have the time?
We read it, it's in the office.
Yeah.
We have that.
I redacted a lot of stuff in his letter. This a lot of anxiety that what happened to him could happen to other people very easily.
There's a lot of issues on that.
Gary, just a question, Gary. What's the process for now? So you take on what you heard, all the feedback, public hearing. What do you do now? You've got these letters.
We're gonna collate all of the information we received, just like we did last time. I'll contact the committee, we'll probably pull them together, we'll go through them, and then hopefully,
Have another public hearing?
well, no, if there's no substantive changes that need to be made,
Right.
As we will take a position on.
we could take a vote perhaps on, October the 2nd.
Your seeker application is not complete at all.
Excuse me?
Your seeker EAF form is not even complete on the application. You can't pass the law without doing that.
Seeker applied here?
Declared yourself lead agency,
Right.
you declared it as a type 1 action, you filled out part 1, you circulated that, I prepared part 3 for tonight.
But but it's not complete and it's not properly filled out. But anyway, I will promise someone I think their letters here because they couldn't come.
Sure.
But this is about the STRs from a person who's a municipal attorney in Greenberg for 8 years and who recently moved to the community and loves it and wants to protect it as much as possible. She had a lot to say about the seeker application. Because you answered no to.
I just got this today.
Oh, you did? Okay. Well, I printed it out.
I didn't.
She, anyway, there's a lot to be said about the seeker, and the law cannot be passed without it.
That's,
Okay.
Tim left?
Yeah, he just left.
Yeah, that's what our process will be. Review what he stated, and then we will move forward.
And we have, unless there's a last minute comment, we have, our regular meeting's not over with yet. We have,
Meeting, you have to talk to your meeting planner, I have to tell you. They need a little.
you're looking at them.
They're no, like, it's all
So-
too much in one meeting. Oh, sorry.
Can I
Yeah.
ask for another?
Yes. Motion to close the public hearing.
Let's make a motion.
Second.
You're closing this public hearing.
I'll second.
Yeah.
Yes. Tonight, close the public.
Tonight. For the STR.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you're-
That doesn't mean that
Doesn't
there
mean
won't
it's
be
not.
another one.
It doesn't mean it's over.
It doesn't mean there's not gonna be another.
Right. It's
not adopted.
This law is not ready to be adopted, it really isn't.
That's why we're gonna hold a committee meeting.
All those in favor?
Yeah, what was I gonna say?
Sorry.
Just so we know, Leslie made that motion, who seconded it?
Doesn't matter.
I seconded it.
Leslie
Yeah.
seconded it.
Yeah. Is Mary not on?
Yes, she's on.
I'm sorry.
She's on.
For the record, Sandy Allen also opined on this as well. Her comment was she favors owner occupied only.
Thank you very much, Sandy Allen.
We have executive session that we need to get into about a personnel issue, so.
Before I vacate, does this need to be left on?
Not for executive.
That's what I
Oh, Mary.
thought. But Mary needs to
Mary?
be on.
Mary has to call
She
in.
has to
Mary
call
will
in.
call in, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I have permission to turn it off.
Yes, you do.
Yeah,
Margaret, thank you
thank
so
you.
much. We would be up
My usual
the
question,
river
any
without
business
you.
after
No.
executive session?
No.
I would say
Paying the bills.